Hear ye, hear ye.
Mm-hmm. This is, yeah, I don't think, have we talked founding daddies? Founding fathers.
There's only one founding daddy. And
I feel like this is founding daddy.
it's him. It's him for more than one reason. Benjamin Franklin. This guy had quite a career, I gotta say. He lived maybe 3 different lives, would you say, in one lifetime?
Yes. And not saying like he lived 3 different like lives as in like he had 3 different families or anything like that.
Well,
the things the things that he did could have comprised somebody's very accomplished life.
Yeah.
And he did it 3 times over, basically, in 3 different facets.
His first act as a printer that made him independently wealthy and able to do what he wanted transitions into his second life of being this weird quasi kind of inventor, finder-outer kind of person.
We don't really know, as far as what we're taught in school or just, general history, anything really about Ben's life under the age of 45. We hear about the whole key thing, and that happens, I think, when he's 47. It's always depicted in pictures of him as like a real old man, and then the kid is like a very young kid, when in actuality, he's like 46,
maybe
47, and his son is 21. But everything that we have really know about him or were normally taught happened after that, when he went to go basically argue on behalf of the colonies at that point in London. When he came back, American Revolution, his time over in France, and then when he comes back to help with like the Declaration, the Constitution, all that kind of stuff. There's 47 years of history about how he even got himself into the position to be the guy they called on for all that stuff.
Yeah, he's the one founding father that you can point to and say, hey, where were you during the American Revolution? And he's like, England. France. Not on the continent that the fighting is happening on, but I am a revolutionary hero. He's the only hero that didn't have to be in the same continent to be able to be a hero.
So somebody, what was the episode I was listening to? It might have been a documentary. It might have been a PBS one, actually. But one of the professors that was talking put it in a sense that George Washington is kind of that guy that is, he's the first American. Wouldn't you think kind of about that first president, everything? And the reason is because when you see George Washington, it reminds you, and you know your history, it reminds you of like, oh, the plucky upstart colonists like beat off England and everything with both hands and, won their independence. The reason that that's not Ben Franklin is because when you look at what Ben Franklin actually did and his contribution to everything, it's still going to tie it back to be like, yeah, oh, that's right. We wouldn't have won that without the French. And so there's this version of it that is completely like, hey, it was all, George Washington. And you can't view, despite probably should have been in, or should have, what am I trying to say? A person that should be in that number one founding father American progenitor role should be Benjamin Franklin.
Well, I think it hurts Ben Franklin's stats against the founding fathers when he could be the grandfather of some of these other founding fathers. He was so damn old.
That's true.
That's not the guy you want leading the Continental Army.
He's the founding godfather is what he is.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. Before we get too far into it, remember everybody, patreon.com/historicallyhigh. Get signed up, get all your weekly content. We're putting stuff out every week.
Ratings, keep those 5-star ratings flowing. We're getting them at a pace that makes us very happy, but we're greedy boys. So 5 stars if you could. Continue with the reviews. We got a pretty heavy amount of reviews for Changis, and we usually do get a lot of reviews, so thank you very much for that. But the Changis ones were very fun. That was an exciting episode to do. Keep subscribing. Our subscriber numbers keep climbing, and we love adding new people into the Cush College here. we can't forget also, as progenitors of the Cush College, I am Professor Adam. Professor Chris has been tickling those ear hairs with that smooth, seductive voice of his.
Yeah, when my mouth gets super dry, I'm like, yeah. All right, well, without making you guys wait, let's get into the founding godfather himself, Benjamin Franklin. All right. I didn't get his middle name, but I saw you wrote down. It was really Jermaine.
No, he didn't have
God
a middle name.
Damn it! Fuck!
He didn't have one, so I had to throw it in there, and I just feel like Benjamin Jermaine Franklin sounds
oh my
awesome.
God. I'm also pretty high in gullible right now, so.
Well, you know what? We can stick with it. I don't think Ben would mind. Ben was a bit of a leg puller himself.
BJF?
Yep. Born January 17th, 1706 to Josiah and Abiah Franklin in Boston on Milk Street. Josiah was born in England in 1657, married his first wife Anne in 1677. They emigrated to Boston in 1683. So this is how the family goes from England to Boston, because at this point in time, we're not talking about in America. We're talking about a loosely affiliated group of colonies that don't really hate each other, but also aren't really cool with each other.
It's not Boston, Massachusetts. It's Boston, Massachusetts Bay Colony. And Josiah specialized in two things. He made two things. He made candles and he made love, because this man had 17 children. Was it 10 with the first and 7 with the other, or vice versa?
Flip them.
Flip them. So 7 with the first, 10 with the second. Ben is the 15th of 17 kids.
He's the 8th and final son.
Yeah, the 10th and final son.
Or 10th and final son. He's the 8th one with him and his
How
second
do you
wife.
have 7? I'm sorry, this is ridiculous. I understand wanting to like populate the colonies. Ridiculous. And this was okay, so he's born 15 years after the Salem witch trials. It's not long ago.
No, it was such a wild time back then, because they immigrate to Boston in 1683. His wife ends up dying in, I believe...
Childbirth?
I don't think it was childbirth. I think it was shortly after.
Did her stuff just fall out after that many kids?
She dies in 1689. He then meets and marries Abiah in that exact same year. He said that she was a very chaste, virtuous young woman.
Fuck off.
Who, I mean, 10 kids is so fast to be able to get those out. But if you think about it, if they get married in 1677 and she ends up passing away in 1689, that's what, 12 years? So 7 kids in 12 years.
No, the second one you said was 10.
Yeah, the first one, though. If they got married in 1677, his first wife, and she dies in 1689, that's 7 kids. What, 7 times 9 is 56. She spent 56 months pregnant. That's a long time.
That's horrible.
It's a long, long time. And then Abiah, 10 more children. That is so many children
Do
to
you
be
think
had.
he just picked them out by looking at their hips?
Maybe. Well,
You're breeding stock.
he had the first 7 kids. He had a built-in daycare already. He had daycare workers with the first 7.
He's looking to field his own militia, essentially.
And he could have. We'll talk about Boston at a point in time here. When Ben gets to Boston, there's 6,000 people in Boston. He had 17 kids in his family. There's no way. What were there, like 100 families in Boston?
When he gets to Philadelphia.
Or Philadelphia.
Yeah.
How many?
So many questions. We did get very stoned before this, but so many questions already out of the gate. First of all, I understand light. Candles are the only source of light. This is pre-electricity, all that kind of stuff. That's going to come into play here in the episode. But, I mean, how many candles do you have to be making to support like 17 kids?
They said that the family was like a middle to upper class, not upper class, but like a middle class family.
And did you see how they make the
Oh yeah,
candles? Just the vats
I've
of
watched
like
plenty
animal
of
fat,
videos.
and it's
Yeah,
just the rack that holds by the wick. It holds them, and they just dip it, and then they let it cool, and then they dip it, and they let it cool. And that's what Ben is doing as kind of an apprentice growing up to his father. He's like, I want you in the family business. That's not a Boston accent, so that's New York, but he's basically just like, great. I just have to be around hot animal fat all day long for the rest of my life.
it's a stinky proposition to have to be dealing with that. I mean, does it get better or worse? Because he was a fabric dyer when he was in England, and then he's an animal fat candelier when he's in Boston.
I'll take the dye.
Yeah,
I mean, the smell is probably better, but the dyes back then would probably kill you pretty quick.
that's fair. They weren't using berries to dye shit, I'm sure. Ben was a very studious boy, though. He had an appetite for reading. His family said that he was kind of the ringleader of the boys in the family. So, being the youngest, it's funny to hear that he was kind of the mischievous one. Mm-hmm. But it's a good thing that he read a lot because his family had like 2 years worth of money for schooling for him.
Yeah.
He ends up attending Boston Latin School, and part of this is his parents think that it's like a tribute to the church. I believe they were Presbyterian to put at least one of their boys into the priesthood. Unfortunately, the last boy that they have in Ben is very rambunctious. He's very outspoken.
You guys are either going to need to let me off the hook on this or have another boy.
Yeah.
Because it ain't going to be me.
And the boy was like, you're off. You're done. We're good.
Yeah.
You don't need to do this.
So apparently they sent him to this Latin school when he was 8 because his schooling ends at 10 years old. And like you said, evident pretty early on that he's not meant for the clergy. This is a situation where he's like, well, if you're not in school, son, you're going to need to get a job. So I get that you're not wanting to do the whole candle maker thing. So we'll have you start apprenticing for your brother James so he can teach you the printing trade. And not only are you just going to apprentice for him, but you're basically going to be forced to sign into legally indentured servitude for your brother for 9 years so you can learn this trade.
And that was at 12. From 10 to 12, when his school ended, that's when he was the candle maker.
Okay.
So I'm sure when it came time to working for his brother in the printing shop, he's like, yeah, I'm ready to get out of here.
Yeah, and then his brother beats the shit out of him in the printing shop.
I didn't put this together until now, but they said that right around the time that Big Ben was getting ready for his first voyage across the pond, they said that he was a pretty heavy vegetarian, didn't eat a lot of meat. You think 2 years in the animal fat candle making factory kind of cured him of wanting to eat meat?
Maybe at that point in his life, because I do know when he gets older, he's got a problem with food.
Yeah. But I would imagine it took a few years to shake off coming in and just smelling like animal fat 24/7.
Yeah, because it's not just, you're not just coming in and it's liquid. You're going out and getting the chunks of animal fat, having to render them down and do all the shit to skim all the stuff off the top or whatever it is. So you have, because they're not just melting it down and then just be like, candles in. You got to like strain that shit and everything. He's probably not doing a lot of the dipping. He's doing a lot of the shit work.
Yeah, I could see why he was a vegetarian for a time in his life. He shook that off, though, for sure.
Yes, so he's in indentured servitude to his brother, and I don't know why they did this. It was something to make sure people didn't, like, waste time learning a trade and then, like, bail, like, a few years later, and then you had to start all over again with an apprentice. It still is insane that they're making Ben do this to his brother. And this thing wasn't intended to last, or was intended to last until he was 21. So, luckily, well, not so much for James, but for Ben, when Ben was 15, James founds the New England Current. Not current as in Current. It's spelled Courant, which is it supposed to be the same meaning, just a different spelling?
This is probably like a color thing where the Brits throw the U in color.
I like it. Let's go with that. So, starting when he's 16, Ben gets this outlet that he's been kind of looking for. Because again, you said he likes to read. He's really studious. Now, being in a print shop, he has access to all of these books. So from the age of 12 doing this, he's reading all these books and he starts submitting essays to this newspaper, sliding them under the door when he's probably living upstairs, technically, or something, under the pen name of Silence Dogood, who is a middle-aged, newly widowed woman and is sending in her opinions of the day in a way that it is a middle-aged woman writing this. And I know that sounds like, yeah, it should sound like that. It's a 16-year-old boy writing believably as a middle-aged widowed woman about like the events of the day.
Ben didn't have a choice, though, because his brother wouldn't let him write anything to put into the papers. So he had to try to hide under this Silence Dogood pen name, and he gets very popular very quick.
His brother was, because I think he kind of exceeded pretty quickly his brother's capabilities, and he's still the apprentice, but when he starts basically being like, no, you should do it this way, or he's writing even better, his brother is the one with the name on the letterhead.
Yeah.
He's not going to let Ben submit something that's better than anything that he's posting in his own paper or whatnot. Like, he's got to find a way around this. And yeah, writing as a middle-aged woman in Boston, middle-aged Boston woman.
That is getting responses into the paper saying that there are men that would marry Silence.
And other
Because of her opinions.
and other contributors that are having their stuff printed are like, this is good. This woman's good. Like, and it's this mystery around Boston. Like, who's this woman?
Yeah, it turns out this woman's Benjamin Franklin. Ben had a very interesting kind of profound way that he would go through, and he talks about this in his autobiography, but basically he would read the equivalent of like an article or a paper or something like that, and he would pull out certain points that he wanted to try to remember. Then he would put that article away, he'd set it down for a week, he would come back to those certain points that he wanted to hit, and he would try to write a persuasive article using those same points. Mm-hmm. And then he would go back and set it next to the article that he had just read and try to see if he could figure out almost not how to copy that language, but he could copy the writing style.
Gotcha.
So he was training himself at a pretty young age to be able to write in a very flowery,
like prose. Like he had different types of prose that he could write in. Is that the right word for that?
No idea, but he knew how to copy writing styles. And it's interesting. I don't know if maybe he had read some older lady literature or something like that.
Heard his mother talking.
Yeah.
About just the stuff she complained about. I was like, I'm just going to log that in.
Yeah, they kept wondering why Silence was pregnant every other letter.
She had 10 kids. She was grumpy. She had a lot to complain about. He wrote 14 letters in all, and that got, submitted and put into the paper. He ends up eventually getting found out, and James was pissed when it happens, but can't really get pissed off because he's got trouble with the law, James does, and ends up going to jail over insulting the colonial government.
Twice.
Well, the first time, while he was in there the first time, Ben took over the print shop, but it was still in James's name. So Ben was basically running the show, but learning how to run a print shop, which he was even more successful than James was. But then James gets arrested again in 1723 for mocking religion and the clergy. And at that point, they're like, you can kind of complain about the government, definitely can't complain about the church. You're banned from publishing. And so as a loophole, he secretly cancels Ben's indentured contract and then puts the printing company under Ben's name.
And then signs him to another contract.
But I don't think the other contract could have held up, right?
I have no idea how indentured servant contracts worked, but he wanted to keep him around because it was very clear at this point that James couldn't keep publishing his own work.
No, and
he was very bad at writing these things.
I don't think he told Ben that he had canceled. I don't know if Ben knew enough about that whole indentured thing to basically know that in order for him to have his name put on the print shop, he couldn't be an apprentice. I just don't think that's something James told him. He's just like, your name's on it now, but you're still definitely in indentured servitude.
I did. Indentured servitude's a very interesting thought to me. I don't like it, obviously, just because it doesn't sound good.
But it's a family member. Like, I don't like it at all, but it's the weirdest concept that it's a family member.
Yeah.
Colonial America's fucked up, man.
It is. After a couple beatings that Ben took from James, as well as just basically saving James's ass on a pretty regular basis, Ben's had enough of his shit. Ben knows that he still has, I believe it was like 4 years left on this indentured servitude contract that he had signed. He ends up selling a lot of his books, a lot of his own personal effects, and ends up jumping a ship, leaving Boston. In order to board this ship, he tells the ship's captain that he has gotten a girl pregnant, and that her friends are going to force him into a marriage that he doesn't want to have in order to not have a bastard child.
I know how that goes, kid. Welcome aboard.
He's like, yeah, no, that checks out. That's why I'm a captain.
Yeah.
That's why I captain this ship.
Girl in every port, sailor.
To run from my baby mamas. This ship ends up taking him from Boston all the way down to New York City. As he lands in New York, he becomes friends with a printer there named William Bradford. Bradford, who doesn't have a spot in his print shop. He's the only printer in New York City. It's so weird to me to think that there was just, like, at a time, one printer in all of New York City.
It's nuts, right?
Bradford doesn't have a spot in his print shop, but he says, oh, well, I do have a son named Andrew that lives in Philadelphia. He just opened up a print shop there. I'm sure he would have a position for a junior printer for you. So Ben keeps the tour going into Philadelphia, and Bradford doesn't have a position for him. Him and Bradford get in this very interesting rivalry because not only is Andrew Bradford, I forgot his newspaper, he's a printer, he also becomes the postmaster general for Pennsylvania at this point in time too. So he has a leg up in the newsprinting business because as a postmaster, he's the one seeing all the letters and the news first.
I can also make sure that my periodicals have priority and are the ones that are pushed out for delivery or for people subscribing to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll only disseminate my paper.
Yeah, definitely can't enrich yourself in that position.
Bit of a conflict of interest for sure. He did find work with a competitor named Samuel Keimer, though. Printer ended up working for the local government. Ben keeps kind of falling into these good situations, but it's not that he falls into them. At a very young age, he talks about in his autobiography how his father would always invite people over for dinner. Now, I can't imagine how many people sat at this table for dinner with all of the children and why you would want to voluntarily go over and hang out with this guy.
Can you pass the peas? What?
Josiah, there's 9 children at the table. Could you maybe wrap it up or pull out of her or something? Just get this fixed.
Yeah.
But he said that he was always really enthralled by the conversation. He loved hearing adults talk and grown-ups talk about the times of the day. So just because he grew up with that, he was a very personable boy.
I think they also presented arguments or talking points that they also wanted the kids to get in on.
Yeah.
To get them just used to having oratory skills, basically.
Well, and so much of this, it reminds me when we were talking about Vesuvius and the town.
Oh, the other town?
Not Herculaneum. Pompeii, yes. Yeah. And how they found all those frescoes on the wall. And we learned that the frescoes on the wall served 2 purposes. They looked great and they were awesome decoration, but at the same time, you would go over to these people's houses and you would have discussions about the frescoes on the wall and kind of get into this little, what does it mean? Who are these people? All that kind of stuff.
Well, he's doing her from behind.
Yeah.
So it's,
It was their form of entertainment. Yeah. And fast forward all the way up to the, 18th century at this point in time, still no TV. Still no other entertainment.
Newspaper is how you get your information, how you get your,
But you're
and
also,
entertainment.
You're reliant on conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Ben such a good conversationalist, enough to where he actually ends up meeting the governor of Pennsylvania, Sir William Keith. And Sir William Keith is taken by this boy. He believes that he should be starting his own print shop, and he says, I will write you a letter back to your parents' son. I will excuse you from running away from your brother, and I will urge them to purchase you a printing press and some typeface on the double so you can start your own print shop.
Saying that is just a really weird series of events. So, right before that, so when he first gets there, that's when he meets Deborah Reed.
Oh, yeah.
So he ends up meeting Deborah Reed, who will end up becoming Deborah Franklin, but meets her like kind of right when he gets into Philadelphia, starts working at a couple of print shops, and then through working at the print shop, it's just a weird thing to say. While he was working at the print shop, that's like saying while he was working at Kinko's.
He met the
But
governor.
he ends up meeting the governor, who sees his work ethic, talks to him a little bit, sees that this is a very talented young man. And then the governor is just like, listen, you should open up your own print shop. I'm going to give you a piece of paper here. You're going to go to London. You're going to go ahead and buy some printing. You are going to go sail for a month to go buy some printing equipment. I'm going to give you my credit card, and then you're going to sail back with said printing equipment for 2 months, and then you're going to set up shop here.
Did
And
you
he's just
see
like, you're the governor, man. Of course I'm going to do that. Of course I believe that you're good for that.
Did you see anything about his first night in Philadelphia? His time in Philadelphia is fascinating. Did you see anything about his first day in Philadelphia?
Wasn't he just like on the docks, like broke?
So he gets off the boat. It was like a piece of copper and then like some sort of a Dutch coin. And he said that he gave the piece of copper to the people on the boat for bringing him to New York, who weren't going to charge him because he helped row some of the way to New York from Boston. He gets into town. He uses whatever the Dutch coin was to buy 3 rolls of bread. Mm-hmm. And then as he's walking down the street, he just sees all of these people walking in one single direction. So he's like, well, fuck, I guess if everybody's going that way, I'll follow him. They file into this church, and it's a Quaker church. And they do like silent prayers and all that kind of stuff. So he sits down on this pew and sees everybody around him with their heads down saying these prayers. Ben just falls asleep. Ben just passes out inside of this Quaker church.
Biscuits.
Yeah. And he said that he knew when it was time to leave the church when the service was over because somebody shook him awake and told him to get out of there. So his first introduction to Boston is just walking into this church, following this group of people, and then just passing out while everybody's having a church service.
He had a long boat ride, man. He had a row.
He did, for sure. So yeah, his letter to his parents doesn't get answered. William says, well, if they're not going to fund you, I will fund you. Go down to the docks, jump on a boat, head over to England. The day comes, and Ben's like, no letter. What am I supposed to do with this? I don't have a letter of credit. I don't have anything else.
Everything will work itself out on the boat.
He says, get on the boat. I will send you a letter on the boat. You will check the boat's mail, and there will be these 2 letters. A couple days go by on the boat. He goes up to the captain. He goes, hey, I need to check out the mail. I have a letter coming from the governor, William Keith. Everybody starts laughing. And he's like, what's so funny? And they go, the governor of Pennsylvania did not write you a letter. I can promise you that. William Keith has never made a promise to anybody that he's kept. And the letters aren't there. But
yeah, here's the thing. The unbelievable thing isn't that like, yeah, sure, kid, you got a letter from the governor. No, the governor is so well known as a dude that doesn't keep his word and just says shit that there's not a letter. And we know that.
there's no choice, or there's no chance at this point.
So there's going to be no introduction when he gets to England or gets to London to get this printing equipment, no line of credit, no nothing.
Well, and prior to this, as you were talking about, I heard this a couple times. I heard a story about him walking on the street and seeing Deborah. I also heard that his landlord in Philadelphia was a woman who had Deborah as a daughter. He has this penchant for dating landladies' daughters. Him and Deborah were pretty close to getting married, though.
You know what I like about these landladies' daughters?
They keep getting younger.
I keep getting older. They stay the same age.
They were planning on getting married, but her mother, Deborah's mother, had just recently lost her husband, and Ben's plans for a future included going over to London and getting a printer and typeface, bringing it back over.
Listen, Mrs. Reed, it's fine. The governor told me he's going to do it. She's like, don't tell me what the governor told you.
The governor said a lot of things.
The governor's full of shit, dude.
So they end up not getting married. Deborah leads a pretty wild life while Ben's gone. On his journey, he ends up meeting this friend named James Ralph. And he also meets another Quaker merchant named Thomas Denham. And Denham is kind of the guy who fully explains to Ben that Governor Keith is just a 7-layer dipshit. As they land in England, him and James Ralph become pretty fast friends. James isn't able to find a job, but Franklin ends up finding work in a print shop as a typesetter. They end up kind of living off of Ben's salary, having the time of their lives in London. This is a kid who's coming from the colonies who, I mean, arguably Boston, New York City, Philadelphia. If you say any of those 3 cities now, you're like, holy shit, you've been to big cities.
Yeah.
But now he's going from those big cities, quote unquote, to London.
He's going to the center of the motherland, fatherland, whatever you want to call it. I was trying to kind of think about this. So this is at a point when there are a few generations, I think, that have been born within, maybe 1 generation, 2 generations that have been born in the New World.
Ooh, wasn't it like 1620?
So
A century's worth?
what
almost?
do they consider a generation? 20 years, 30 years?
Yeah, back then, a generation could have been 15 years.
Okay. Let's go 4 generations just for, okay. So there are people that they've only ever known, many people that have only ever known the colonies. They've never been to the place that is the place that technically owns and that like all of these other people around you's families have come from.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's very weird for me to think about because I don't get that concept. That's like in the States, that's like saying my whole family's from this state and then we moved over to this other state. And you're like, but I can pretty easily go visit that other state if I needed to.
Yeah.
This is a month-long sea voyage that's not free, and it's not exactly super... I mean, it's safer at this point, but still a lot of shit can happen. And you're like an 18-year-old kid that you're now getting to go to the city that you've heard about of just being the pinnacle of the empire and of civilization. And you just show up, and you're kind of broke, but you're just like, holy shit, I'm here in London.
We're going to party.
That's what I'm saying, because that's what they ended up doing. He ends up getting a job. Oh. Surprise, surprise. He uses his skill as a printer. And that's the other thing, too. This is a pretty, sought-after skill set. So he's able to find work at these places when he goes over.
Well, the wild thing, too, is it's not like he was trained. He just worked in print shops in the colonies, which there were a handful of, and then went back to London, where there's probably hundreds of these print shops.
Welcome to the league, kid.
Yeah.
Welcome to the bigs.
And you're great. James was escaping the New World and the colonies from his wife and his family and decided to start over. James had ended up taking up with a woman in London, and it turns out that Ben took a liking to her as well. And one day...
different James than his brother.
Yeah, James Ralph.
Okay.
This is... we'll call him Ralph, because Ralph's just a fun name to say.
King Ralph.
Ralph had started dating this girl, and one day Ben came over to get a hold of Ralph, and Ralph wasn't there, and Ben realized that he had an opening for this woman, and ended up trying to make a move on her.
Thought he had an opening for this woman.
He tried to make a move on her. That ends up just ending in sad rejection, where him and Ralph end up splitting. But the friendship that he made on the boat along with Ralph was Thomas Denham, and Denham was a hell of a businessman. He was a very, very good worker. He instilled a lot of these core values inside of Ben because he saw just how successful Denham was. Ben gets this work as a typesetter, and I still, for some reason, I didn't Google this enough, but I believe a typesetter is the man who actually sets the plates of the letters into the typeset.
Yeah, I mean, I think those, because a typesetter now in an actual typewriter, yes, they still exist, is the thing that just like clicks up and hits the, or whatever you want to say.
That's got to be...
There used to be a manual typesetter, just like there was a manual loom or weaver or something like that, or sewer. Now it's a sewing machine. But yeah, there was somebody that was like, had to build the tiny little metal slide. And that's why when you look at an old newspaper, some of the letters are kind of staggered and everything because nothing was a perfect fit, because all of this stuff is little metal pieces that are having to be handcrafted. And you just have to slide them into the things, then slide the page under, because I wonder how many of those you could get on one sheet. Probably not a ton. Or
was it just a flat against the plates and then pull back?
Yeah, I don't know.
We didn't look into 17th or 18th century
I just know
typesetting
it was
enough.
at the point when they had to have the big rod
Yeah.
and you had to pull it and it pressed the thing down really hard. But I would imagine you're probably right that it was on the flat and then you would paint ink over it and then you would take the paper, smash it down on it, and God, and then they had to hang each page to dry.
An arduous job. If you have 1,000 words on the front page and you have to put in whatever 7,000 letters,
Oh my God, think if you fucked up.
everybody's gonna know.
Everybody's going to know.
So it's a very, very important job, and he does really, really well at this. Denham was headed back to Philadelphia. Ben was right around this time to return. He spent 2 years. Is that how long the first voyage was?
Yeah, he wasn't over there for long, but he ends up kind of coming back with this renewed purpose of saying, I kind of messed around for the few years that I was there and everything. I sowed my wild oats all over town. And he kind of is factoring when he gets back, he's like, what am I going to do when I get back? And this is when he first writes down his, like, how many virtues is it?
12.
12
It
virtues.
starts out as 12.
Yeah.
Well, part of this is because he sees the way that Denham leaves. Denham says, hey, I'll loan you the money to head back to Philadelphia. When you get back, I would like to hire you as my clerk, shopkeeper, bookkeeper. But before we go, come to this dinner. And all of these creditors that Denham had lined up in England show up to this dinner. And Denham has this way of thanking everybody where he goes, everybody lift up your plates. And underneath everybody's plates, there's envelopes with all of the money that Denham owed all of these creditors paid back in full.
Such a baller move.
Yeah.
Because you're basically, all of these people are showing up. And at first you're thinking, there's a lot of people here. He owes money to a lot of people. But then it's like a way of just like success busting all over everybody when you're just like, everyone at the same time witness that I'm paying you all back at the same time, and I owe none of you any money anymore.
This is Oprah saying, look under your chairs.
Yes.
But he starts to get all of these different virtues just from what he's learned. And it starts out as 12. It will grow to 13 with kind of one final.
These aren't earth-shattering, innovative virtues or anything. He's just trying to make a list of how he wants to kind of go about living his life.
They refer to temperance. I'm not going to read them all because there's 12 of them. Temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, which is hilarious. And finally, he ends up coming back and he shares these virtues with one of his Quaker friends.
You did just read all of them.
The actual, like,
Oh,
the
gotcha,
meanings
gotcha.
behind each one of them, because they were all pretty insane.
With our powers combined,
Yeah.
we are Captain Virtue.
Yep. And he gets back to Philadelphia. He's sharing this list of virtues that he finds with a Quaker friend, and he goes, you forgot one, Ben. Ben goes, what is it? And he goes, humility. He goes, ah, yes. Humility will be my 13th
I'll add that in
virtue."
later.
But he also kept this kind of crazy little notebook where each week he would try to work on one of these different virtues, and he would basically chart all this. And I told you as we were studying this week, Ben feels a little bit like a tryhard. I do believe, though, that probably comes from us looking at all of his writings and him probably having some belief in his life that none of this was ever going to see the light of day. Mm-hmm. So his own personal writings kind of made him come off as a little bit of a tryhard. But again, this was him writing for his own purpose. This wasn't him writing for the world to see.
His dirty writing is so good. The writings that he does when he's in France are so good.
Well, that's Silence. That's probably Silence Dogood.
Oh,
And
no.
all her
This has
sexual
been writing to
experience.
all of the women of like the French court and French aristocracy and everything.
These women were silent. One of these women was Silence's age. So he's like, what would Silence want for the dirty talk? What would get
What would
Silence
Silence
off?
want to hear? Yeah. How would I seduce Silence Dogood?
As they come back to Philadelphia, like I say, he ends up going to work for Denham. They return in 1726. So Ben is 20-ish years old at this point in time. And he begins to crave this kind of salon atmosphere that he encountered in England inside of these coffee shops. And he starts to put together this group that he created, a group of like-minded artisans and tradesmen who hope to improve themselves while they improve their community.
He witnesses the Enlightenment. in all of these coffee shops in London. He sees all of these people, and the Enlightenment is basically where the shift was kind of put from solely a focus on divine creation and all that kind of stuff, divine answers for all the tough questions, where it was more of a logic, science, all that stuff could start being explained in manners where there was a logical reason for things.
People were you had the Protestant Reformation that had happened. You had Martin Luther come in, and people were turning away from the church for the answers to all of the worldly things.
Because of those fucking Borgias.
Well, that and Henry.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
it was a mix.
all of a sudden, Ben is like, I want to kind of introduce and see if I can bring, because the Enlightenment has to travel. Because remember, French, like the Italian Enlightenment and everything like that happens at different times. It kind of works its way up. And he forms this junto to basically try to recreate this Enlightenment-esque like feeling or part of society that he really like latched onto in England.
I would say it's a pretty interesting mix because it's not just artisans, it's tradesmen. So you have to assume that this isn't just like philosophical debate. These are like blue collar tradesmen in there who are probably discussing their craft and how they want to improve their businesses. It's not only just where you get together and ask why, it's kind of a conglomeration of skills that can be passed to, and again, to improve their community.
Like a practical enlightenment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not so much like an intellectual enlightenment as an actual practical enlightenment.
Well, one of the problems that the junto faced were books were pretty scarce, and they were also very, very expensive. And so if you're talking about, Voltaire said this in this reading, and 90% of the room's like, we don't own Voltaire. You know how hard it is. You found that book in England, motherfucker.
I was it's only, listen, the third person in the room has read that book. Like, it's only made its way around. And so he's having to pass out his books and just like to different people.
Yeah, so since books were scarce, they all agreed to start pooling their books together. They pooled their money together to buy books that they could put in a common place. And this would end up giving birth to something called the Library Company of Philadelphia. It was chartered in 1731 by Ben himself. This is the first like public for rent book library in the Americas.
Yeah. Which is insane to think about, that like at some point the thought was just like, we should have a place where we just have all the books people could possibly read, because I mean that would be good for education for everybody, and we'll just like charge them a rental fee, and then we'll use that rental fee to buy more copies and more different books,
or replace the ones if something happens to them. Like
we'll charge late fees.
He invented the library and the late fee all at the exact same time. But if you're trying to build this junto and you're trying to build a smarter society, if everybody's drawing from the same pool of knowledge with these books, it's going to be a lot easier to have these conversations.
Yeah.
You're going to get people that read the same passage and have a different outlook on it. It just spurs more conversation.
It's like you're waiting for your friend to finish a TV series that you recommended, and you're like, just finish it so we can fucking talk about it. Are you done yet?
I just want to ask what you think of the ending. But it's so crazy. Ben gets credited with so much stuff. And on the inventing side that we're going to talk about a little bit later, it's great. It's awesome. It's fantastic. Ben is a pretty brilliant mind. But there's a lot of works that Ben does for the community that really stand out in my mind as something where Ben's just he's a loving, caring person. He cares more about the many than he does just about educating the few.
Yeah. 1728, he sets up a printing house in partnership with a guy named Hugh Meredith, and in 1929 becomes the publisher of the Pennsylvania Gazette in Philadelphia.
They had to set this up because Denham died and did not leave a single thing to try to help Ben out. So when you say he pairs up with Meredith, they end up buying the newspaper that he had worked for before from Samuel Keimer, who was going out of business. The newspaper wasn't doing well.
Did you see its name? It had like a 13 word name. You're spending all of your advertising space on just the name of the paper.
They had typesetters that were blowing out shoulders just trying to set up the name on the paper.
It was like the discovery of science and all this other stuff. And then it was like the Philadelphia or the Pennsylvania Gazette.
Yeah. So you cut that down to the Pennsylvania Gazette, and him and Meredith get into business, and they turn this all around. And they turn this all around because it gives Ben this outlet for all these various grievances that he has with all of these local issues. He finally has a way to, instead of sitting in this junto, this salon, and talking about all this stuff, he has a way to reach the masses with all of his beliefs, all of his grievances, all his problems. I wonder if he was a little concerned about maybe bad mouthing anybody after what happened to his brother. But also, he's in a different city.
I don't necessarily know if it was against like the government or that kind of stuff, but he wrote it in such a way. And here's the thing too, he was such a, much more talented writer than his brother. His brother is probably just like, yo, fuck the church. And that's how it read. I'm not saying exactly, but in comparison to how Ben could put it in a satirical form or something like that, it could be much more well read or better, worded, that it doesn't come off just so blatantly obvious.
And they talked about how
Tongue in cheeks type stuff.
Yeah. They talk about how great of a writer Ben is. I listened to 3 hours of his autobiography, and it's too flowery for me. Like
That's how when we were trying to figure out Shakespeare and stuff like that and read that, it's the same way. But I like the fact that when he writes the dirty shit when he's in France, he does it in such a flowery way, but like very mischievous and everything. But it's so clear what he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not coming out and saying that he wants to lick the hole, but he's
saying just like, and then they say you should multiply. And I've offered many times to show you how to do that.
Dirty boy. Along with this paper plan that they go with the Pennsylvania Gazette, 1732, and this is just jumping ahead a little bit for this little blurb here, he publishes the first German newspaper in America, Die Philadelphische Zeitung. And this would only last a year because there were like 4 other German papers
that went online.
There was a huge
German population in Pennsylvania.
And it turns out that just because he knows how to say the Philadelphia Gazette in German doesn't mean that he's going to reach the German people.
Oh, look who the new boy is in the German news game.
So yeah, he gets wiped out within a year on this German kind of paper, but it's also pretty interesting. Like the fact that that's what he reaches out for. Like you say, a huge German population, but he's looking at the population of purchasers. And he's like, we should provide something for all these German speaking
He came into
people.
a market that was already flooded.
Yeah. Well, I think they all started after him, and they were just so much better. He had the first, and then the 4 came, and they all were actually German. So they
You're
knew,
using too much humor. We Germans don't get it. We don't laugh.
We are very serious people.
This is also where he starts to kind of understand that his public image is very important as well, but not to have an image of like austerity, but to have an image of like a hard worker and more of kind of just the normal guy. So he could just hire someone, and he has the means to do it for this, print shop or this newspaper, to go and get like the supplies and the paper and all that kind of stuff and just bring it to the shop. But he is purposely seen going and getting it. They said the wheelbarrow that he would just walk down the street with, he'd always be wearing his leather apron. He would never oil the wheel of the wheelbarrow, so it would make a squeaking sound, so it would draw attention. And people would be like, there's that Franklin boy, like, look at him, it's just an industrious lad. And because he did this and he was constantly being seen by all these other businesses that he walked past, he got deals on like where books would go ahead and do their printing and things like that. And he ends up getting selected to actually print the currency for Pennsylvania.
This sounds like a try-hard move again.
But at the same time, it works.
Yeah, but you're not going to oil the wheel.
Hustling.
You're not going to oil the wheel on your wheelbarrow. Come on. Just so you know
why I like it? You know why I like it? Because it's like little clever shit like that. Sure, he's a tryhard, but he's not being like in your face about it. He's like, if I don't oil this, people will turn and look and see me doing this. He's still doing the work.
Yeah, he's not happy about it.
No, but he understands that he's putting in the work.
It's the image that he's putting forward. And yeah, you're right. It's extremely successful. It's very successful, and it leads the Philadelphia Gazette, or the Philadelphia Gazette, I believe. Yeah, not the Pennsylvania. But it leads to this bigger business. It leads to kind of where William...
It was the Pennsylvania Gazette. You had it right.
Yeah. Oh, is it Pennsylvania or Philadelphia Gazette?
It's the Pennsylvania Gazette.
Goddamn.
It was in Philadelphia. That's why it's confusing.
So close to each other. He's working with the government. I don't know if Keith is still in power at this point in time, but I wonder if he ran into the governor, Keith, again, and he's like, hey, fucker.
Nope, that guy only gets away for lying for so long, not backing up his promises.
I don't think he's still in power there. But he has to get everything in order. He begins to rekindle this romance with Debbie in 1830.
1730.
1730. Jesus.
I wrote 19 stuff so often during research for this.
In the time that Ben went away and kind of made himself into a person, Debbie had married this man named John Rogers. And John Rogers was just a lifetime loser. He stole her dowry. He ran up a bunch of other debt with that. Enough so that he stole a slave and fled to the British West Indies.
He ran to Barbados with the dowry. I'm not laughing because that's not funny. That's horrible.
It's hilarious.
But because that happened, Debbie was available for Ben when he came back.
Well, I think this wasn't as uncommon because the guy that they bought the paper from, Kyman, he took the money from the paper and didn't pay any of his debtors and just fled to Barbados too. So that was like the back door out of Philadelphia. He's like, well, if I run up enough debt, I can just flee to Barbados. I just have to have enough money.
Does he want the Neho off of like, yeah, it's the place you go off of Shawshank.
We always talk about this. There's so much of the stuff back then where it's like everybody could be a killer back then because all you had to do was kill somebody and then just move like 3 towns away.
Yeah.
And theirs was like...
And Barbados sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're really going to be bummed about jumping ship out of Philadelphia?
I just need to steal enough money to get myself set up in Barbados. So he ends up, which is because she's technically still married to him because they don't know if he's dead or not. They have to be common law married.
Bigamy, man. Bigamy is a crime.
I know it is, but what I'm saying is it's not even to where they can be like, he abandons her.
Yeah.
At least, and they're like, but you're still married. She's like, the fuck?
He's got a bunch of debts. He stole a slave and he ran away, and we're going to still.
But we don't know he's dead. So you're still technically married.
The weird part about that too is they got common law married, and bigamy was against the law. So bigamy was against the law in a religious sense, but not a common law sense.
I mean, they mentioned it during every podcast.
Yeah, no. I think it's right, but that just shows you how strong of an influence the church had. Was the church couldn't recognize 2 marriages, but we'll common law marry you.
Yeah.
There's a surprise in this common law marriage, too.
There is a surprise in this common law marriage. Real quick, before I get at the surprise, this was also around the time, because it was 1730 when they got common law married. 1730 to 1731, this is when Ben is initiated into the Freemasons. And just to kind of knock out his Freemason stuff, because it's not going to be a huge focal point.
That's on the next board, okay.
Oh, I was just going to say what he became and where. Oh, that's also at the point where they do the hazing thing.
Yes.
I forgot about. Okay, I will hold off on that for a second then.
Okay.
Yes, February 20th, 1970. Benji had an illegitimate son named William, who nobody knows who the mother is or anything, but he ends up acknowledging, and he lives with Debbie and himself. So she is not nice to him.
No. William born February 22nd, 1736. Debbie married September 1st, 1730, not 1736. Debbie married September 1st, 1730. So what? He's 7 months old when Ben and Debbie get married.
Yeah.
There's no way to try to play it off that this was like impregnated, got married.
You know, there's always going to be theories about stuff. Part of it is that it was actually might have been Debbie's or something like that. I don't know how the timing would have worked out his exact age, but that because he had to acknowledge it was better for that kid to be a natural or illegitimate kid than to be considered a bastard or something like that. I'm not sure how that goes, but the fact that she was not nice to him makes me thinks he was sticking it in some other lady.
Yeah, well, that and William was just kind of a bastard. William was a bastard man.
Yes, but listen, you're saying because of how he becomes an adult and what he does. I'm sure he was a nice kid. This woman was just mean to a kid.
They had 2 children amongst themselves. Francis, who died at age 4 of smallpox. This haunts Ben for most of his life because apparently there was a smallpox inoculation and he just kept putting it off and never gave it to his son.
Yeah, this haunts him for the rest of his life. And the grief that you would feel for that has got to be insane. There are some other kind of theories because we're going to talk about it later in life. He's away from home a lot. He's away from home when Debbie gets ill and everything. And there's been some talk about the potential that these delays that he was having, whether they be legit or, incorrect, that he blamed Debbie for some reason for putting off the inoculation or something of that nature. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's just simply tied to the fact that he was away from home a lot and everything like that, or if there is, it could go either way.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, Ben could still try to figure out some time to jab his baby with a needle.
Well, exactly, and at the same time, the letters that they write back to each other, back and forth, don't sound like two people who, or from Ben anyway, from someone wanting to try to stay away from somebody.
No.
Just somebody that has a duty that's just like it's a fucking. He gets tunnel vision, and until something is complete, until something is done, nothing else exists.
Well, they were always very cordial in their letters. They seemed to care about each other at least somewhat. They also had Sarah, who was their daughter. She would end up outliving Ben, thankfully, not getting inoculated. But yeah, like you said, Debbie just wasn't good to William. She raised him as her own, but she raised him in a way to where he probably didn't want to be raised that way as her own because she just picked on him.
Well, yeah, like she raised him instead of raised him as her own. She raised him like she wanted him disowned.
Yeah, she never came out and was like, "You're not my kid, though." Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure at some point that was mentioned because he was recognized. He wasn't like claimed as Debbie's kid, so I think there was probably a lot of animosity there. It was kind of around 1932, I believe, or a little bit after, he begins publishing this thing called Poor Richard's Almanac.
1732. We're real bad at this. Before we get into Richard, let's get to this. Let's go to the bathroom, take a bathroom break, and then let's jump into
the Masonic
lodge.
stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hello. Listen, while we head to the restroom and get ourselves something to drink, why don't you do something nice for yourselves? Head on over to patreon.com/historicallyhigh and get signed up for a little bonus content. I mean, come on, you deserve it.
If you want to keep up with this, our main source of social media is going to be our Instagram, which is Historically High Pod, POD.
You can also head over to its Twitter. It's X. It's Twitter. Come on. At Historically High. And that's high, H-I like high.
If you have any recommendations you want to get to us, just want to reach out and say hello, you can hit us up on our email at historicallyhighpodcast, HIGH podcast @gmail.com.
All right. And with that said, let's get back to the good stuff. All right. Ben and the Freemasons.
That might be one of my favorite episodes that we've done. Mm-hmm. I really, really enjoyed doing the Freemasons. And this is just another founding father. The founding daddy was himself a Freemason. The reason that he begins his journey with the Freemasons is because he writes an article about the secretive nature of the Freemasons. He was courting them, kind of.
I know. And I think he knew how to get their attention. So he was basically, because he wrote it once he was in or out of the Freemasons.
He wrote it before. This is how they got into contact.
That's what I'm saying. So he basically is like, I want to be a Freemason. I feel like I don't know who is a Freemason, but I think if I write about the Freemasons will approach me. And then once they talk to me, they're going to see how awesome I am, and they're going to want me to be a Freemason.
So yeah, February 3rd, 1731, Ben's initiated into the Freemasonry at St. John's Lodge in Philly. This essay that he ends up writing afterwards is called The Secret Nature of the Mason. So this is after he becomes a Mason to be able to write about kind of not necessarily how the Masons operate, but just about how secret their organization is.
Yeah.
And it draws a lot of eyes to the Masons. And this is a pretty good play by the Masons as well, because Ben's establishing himself as the preeminent newspaper out of the like two newspapers that are competing in Pennsylvania at the time.
Well, and I mean, his rise during like his time with the because he's a Freemason for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But I mean, 30 to 31, I think that's when he's initiated into it, somewhere in that range. Becomes a Grand Master in 1734. So 3 years, maybe 4.
Sounds like maybe they pushed him.
I do think, but
steps.
he also, and I think we talked about this, like the tunnel vision thing, when he had something in front of him, he just went for it. And he loved reading. And here's the other thing. At this time, how many degrees do you think it took you to get to Grand Master? Because wasn't this at a time when there were only a certain number of degrees?
I think it was like 16 or 32, 35, something.
I thought there were more added on. We're going to have to kind of go back and look at that. But Grand Master 1734, then serves as the secretary of the St. John's Lodge in Philly from 35 to 38. So, I mean, he's really active with the Freemasons during that time frame. And then again, he's always a Freemason for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and the same year that he becomes Grand Master, he prints the first Masonic book printed in America called the Constitutions of the Freemasons. So he's not only adding to the stature of the Freemasons, but they also now have a publisher that they can print to start handing out to other Masons.
That's a good point.
Pretty good deal that they got going there. 1736, Ben Franklin creates the Union Fire Company, one of the first volunteer fire companies in America. He also, in that same year, prints this new anti-counterfeiting type currency for New Jersey. So now he's not only doing the currency in Pennsylvania, he's also doing the currency for New Jersey. So he's spreading out his work to these other colonies. He was a major advocate for the use of paper money, which is kind of funny because we ended up throwing Ben Franklin on the $100 bill, of course, but we also ended up making a Ben Franklin 50-cent piece. Mm-hmm. So he was an advocate for paper money. We're like, yeah, fuck it. We'll give him the $100 bill, but we also want to put him on a coin too.
I want to be on a piece of currency that people will roll up one day and snort cocaine through.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that with any paper currency, but, you know, at least show the man some respect. Use a hundy.
51st, 102nd, and it's just the sheer volume of it can only touch so many hands as opposed to like a $1 bill that can go through a billion hands.
Oh, God. What do they say percentage-wise? Like $100 bills have cocaine residue
It's
on
like 98% of all paper currency.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot that has cocaine residue on it.
Only in America, baby.
Yep. Thank you, South America. 1743, he founds the American Philosophical Society to help scientific men discuss their discoveries and theories. He just continues to add to the greater good of the population. You have a volunteer fire company to go save houses that are primarily all just made of wood. These are basically cities full of stacked up tinder, one next to the other.
Well, do you remember what the method was for firefighting?
Wasn't it brigade lines or?
No, it was we don't fight the fire of the building that's actually on fire. We just make sure that the buildings next to it don't burn down. Because if a lightning strike had occurred and it had set that house on fire, someone in that house had sinned, and that's why God struck the house with lightning and caused the fire. We're not going to put out that fire because that would be going against the will of... I'm being serious when I tell you this.
Yeah.
We're going against the will of God because he wanted that house to burn down. We just have to make sure the ones next to it don't.
Tough deal to not be able to.
What'd you do, Johnson? What'd you do to piss God off?
You guys have buckets of water. Just throw it on the fire. Mm-hmm. Nah, you sinned.
It's still so small. It's just the roof.
I called you guys 30 seconds ago. Come on. He's like I say, he's lining up these accolades. He gets the American Philosophical Society, which is still around today. From 1743 to today, they're still putting out publications. 1744, during King George's War, which was a part of the French and Indian Wars, Ben ends up raising a militia named the Association for General Defense because the city of Philadelphia just didn't care. They just didn't take any action.
And this is again, if you've gone back, listen to the episode on King Philip's War.
This
You'll
was
see
King George's War.
King George. Oh, wait. What was King?
King Philip's War was the one that
No,
happened.
I know that was King Philip's. Oh, that happened much earlier.
Yeah, King George's, that was
was King George's
Massachusetts Bay Colony. That was the Narragansetts.
No, yes. What was King George's War?
King George's War was a part of the French and Indian War.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So it was one of those skirmishes that happened,
Okay.
which we haven't covered the French and Indian War. We haven't covered the 7 Years' War. We'll get to them for sure.
But I mean, he covers what, like 50 cannons? He buys like 50 cannons, which is crazy that you were just like, hey guys, you just show up with 50 cannons.
It was probably the easiest thing to teach people how to use, too. Because you're not, to sight it,
doing that wrong is very costly.
it is, but to sight in a cannon, you're not trying to get a pinpoint aim with a rifle or anything like that. And it's enough of a bluster to just keep people at a distance.
Not if they're using balls, man.
Oh, grape shot? Yeah.
No, even just regular cannon balls. Like if you're not using grape shot is what came out as the little balls that would be like
Yeah.
a shotgun.
But if you're firing out a cannonball, you have to be accurate, but it's not the same as trying to sight it in.
Correct, but at the same time, remember with those cannons, the impact and the cannons would slide back?
Yeah.
You would then have to move it back up and then try to kind of aim it again where you were trying to go. So there was aiming every single time.
If you ran out of cannonballs, did you just have to go retrieve them if you were like training or practicing?
I think that was probably something that, or they maybe used like ones that were carved out of like stone, so they were
Oh, like dummies almost.
easier to like
Yeah.
to replace.
Yeah, I'm sure steel cannonballs were probably pretty expensive back then, just based upon their usage. 1747, we have Ben at the age of 42 being so successful in the printing game that he could go ahead and retire from the printing business. He still retains ownership. This is kind of a crazy little fast forward. By 1753, 8 of the 15 English language newspapers in the colonies were published either by him or by his partners. So there was 15 different newspapers in the colonies. He either owned or partners with 8 of the 15 of them. He's
Creating and like, I don't want to say an industry. He's supporting an industry or a large portion of it, but he is also then able at that point to, his writings are still being put in these different ones. So if he writes an article, he is good enough to where he's like, I'm going to send this to all my printing companies or my publishers. They're going to send it out. And this is one of the reasons too, before he even goes over the second time to London, this guy is, aside from like royalty or having done some crazy like historical event or anything like that, this guy's like an international celebrity at some point. And his celebrity just kind of rises. Like people over in France know of like Poor Richard's Almanac. Mm-hmm. And as his prominence is rising within the colonies,
we forgot to talk about that. We'll jump back to Poor Richard's Almanac.
Yeah, so like just stuff like that. But as his like prominence is rising, it's because people are reading these articles and being like, it's another article. Did you guys see the new Ben Franklin article, or did you see the new Ben Franklin pamphlet?
New Ben Frank dropped.
That new BF drop.
He was kind of like at that point in time, he was the William Randolph Hearst of printing in America. There was just 15 different
Except it was
outlets.
probably shit you would want to read. It wasn't just like hippies are bad, don't smoke weed.
Yeah, we forgot to talk about Poor Richard's Almanac. Poor Richard's Almanac's a very interesting piece. Obviously, his name wasn't Richard, and he wasn't poor.
Poor Dick's Almanac.
No. He produces this almanac that was an annual publication from 1732 to 1758. And not only is it filled with the traditional almanac stuff like calendars and weather patterns and the phases of the moon, but then he also starts adding in entertainment. Like he's packing in entertainment value to this otherwise kind of boring piece of literature that really only farmers would buy. Mm-hmm. And you start to get all of these letters. There's some goofy shit where he takes a letter in from a quote unquote reader And basically, he says that poor Richard is able to give him a definitive death date on when he's going to die. And all it is just correspondence that Ben's writing in between himself.
This is like our, this is totally not like our announcement video for Believe, where it's totally not us asking ourselves questions.
No, those reporters were here in the studio with us.
Completely legitimate, real people.
But he's providing this yearly entertainment. And between those years, I think it said that he averaged about 10,000 book sales a year. It's a hell of a lot of almanacs to sell.
Yeah. And there were other almanacs out too. This wasn't like the first game in town, but it was the first one where he was putting all of his little isms and like little quotes and stories and little drawings and stuff like that. And if you're looking at two different almanacs, they're going to have the same information historically for like weather, things like that. But then if you're like, but this one's got like, it's basically like being like, but this one's got the Ben Franklin funnies in it. Mm-hmm. Like I want the Franklin funnies.
This is where they put cartoons in newspapers.
Yes.
Everybody wanted them. And it came out once a year. So you were on bated breath for the next 364 if you bought it.
You talked about that shit for the next 3 months. Oh, you guys remember that story in the almanac?
You also get all of these little turns of phrase. This felt so Shakespearean to me. And he didn't make up all these little turns of phrases or anything like that. But like you get early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. All these aphorisms, I think is what you would call them, to where you get this stuff permeating the culture to where you would hear somebody else say something like that in public. You'd be like, Poor Richard's Almanac.
Yeah.
I heard that one too. I got that edition. It's a great edition.
Ben Franklin.
Also, he threw out, I think one of my favorite ones was the similarities between guests and fish as they both start to smell after 3 days.
Yeah, yeah. 1936, he actually creates the Union Fire Company.
Yeah, we talked about that. Union Fire Company, volunteer fire company.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about. Did you ever talk about the hospital?
Not yet. Hospital is later, coming up.
Hey, guy. I'm kind of stoned.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. 1748, I believe the hospital. Yeah, the hospital's after that. 1748, he gets selected as a Philadelphia councilman. 1749, he becomes a justice of the peace.
Did you talk about now I'm lost. Did you talk about the new currency that he creates for New Jersey with the anti-counterfeiting?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Where were you?
I'm sorry. I was reading something.
We covered that because not only is he printing the currency for Philadelphia or for Pennsylvania, now he's moved into New Jersey. The anti-counterfeit technology we talked about. That's why we're into him being a councilman. I don't know why he wants to become a justice of the peace. Like, all justice of the peace is do is marry people, right?
Maybe it was something different.
Possibly.
Because when you say a justice of the peace, that's technically... No, because they only use that when you're in front of a judge. When you're at a wedding where someone's just been ordained by the Church of the Bob's Bargain Car Lot or whatever it was, whatever you can do online, that person's not a justice of the peace.
No. But a justice of the peace is the legal... when you go in and have to sign the documents and shit, right?
Yeah, so maybe it's a specific title.
Is this like how the blacksmith was the dentist, probably? Like the printer was a justice of the peace, probably?
I don't know. I think this feels like a civic position more so than like a private
maybe
business. It's a judicial officer or public official who presides over a local court of limited jurisdiction. Often handling minor civil cases, small claims, misdemeanor, traffic violations. They often serve as a lay judge, yada, yada, yada.
Oh, he would love that then if he's just solving neighborly disputes.
Oh, God, yes.
He would be in on that for sure. All right, that makes sense.
Just being able to hand out his little isms at it to the criminals and the people on trial.
You know what that Ben Franklin character says, early to bed, early to rise. 1751, he's elected to the Pennsylvania Assembly. In that same year, as you were talking about, him and a physician, forgot to write his name. Thomas Bond. Established the Pennsylvania Hospital, the first hospital of the colonies. That's pretty fucking good.
That's pretty fucking scary, dude. Yeah. We are in the 1750s. When did we land?
1620.
This is the first hospital
130
in the
years.
colonies.
Yeah. 130 years, first hospital. It seems like we might have been wasting some time doing some other shit. 1752, he organizes the Philadelphia Contribution Ship, which is the colony's first homeowners insurance company. What the hell? They had a homeowners insurance company like 3 years after they finally
Houses
got
are
their
getting
first.
struck by lightning left and right, man. They're burning down. Here's the other thing, too. You needed the insurance because if your house caught fire, the house wasn't getting put out. Your house was going to burn down because God wanted it to.
Interestingly enough,
It didn't cover natural disasters or acts
probably
of God.
not acts of God for sure. It definitely, that's where we get the clause, acts of God. That's what happened. If you didn't get struck by lightning and it was just a regular fire, we'll give you the insurance. But if you got struck by lightning, that's with you and God.
We have a strict no lightning policy.
Part of the reason why he could have been doing this, though, was in 1752, as you were talking about earlier. This is when we get the image, this iconic image of Ben and William flying their kite. After Ben does all of this research, he's like a traveling like sleight of hand guide that's doing all these electric sort of tricks.
What it sounds like to me is it's something where you see the rays in the tubes, like the long light bulb looking things.
This sounds like the first Tesla to me.
It kind of does, but it sounds like the thing where it's
Nikolai
a combination of, it sounds like, when you put your hands on the thing and it does the little beams that go out to your hands on it, like that, except you wouldn't put your hand on it. It would just have the bolts or the arcs of electricity going up the glass. But he looks at this and being just somebody that's curious, just naturally, he's just like, I got to know how that works.
After he gets into electricity, he starts to kind of put some things together in his head about lightning. And for some reason, he writes down this list of at least 12 similarities between lightning and electricity. I don't know why he couldn't do more. Maybe he was leaving it open-ended because people could add on to beyond the 12 that he had found.
But like, so what 12 things are you writing down? He's like, okay, I noticed that both of them are kind of squiggly lines. And he ends up finding out, and wasn't it always thought, or did you always think this, or maybe it was just me, that lightning struck the kite and that's what electrified the key, and that's how...
I think that's how it's depicted in the pictures that we saw.
Okay, what actually happens is as he's flying this during a lightning storm, it doesn't get struck by lightning. He notices the yarn or whatever it is, the rope that they're using, because it's wound, starts to kind of like stand up like hairs on your arm do when you get goosebumps. And he's like, oh shit, the static is building up. And he goes and he basically kind of like touches the key or gets close to it with his knuckle and it arcs. And he's like, lightning is just static electricity. He's like, it built up. And as it built up, it went to the thing that was conductive. And then as I put my hand to it, I was the ground for it and it arced off. And this blows the fucking mind of the world.
And it's tough because if you really go by how we've always kind of thought of the story, had Ben's kite been hit by lightning, we would have had, instead of Franklin Barbecue in Texas, we'd had Franklin Barbecue in Philadelphia because it would have killed the shit out of him.
Well, hold on a second. It depends because who was holding the kite when he went up and wrapped the key?
You think he was holding on to William's hand just in case?
William's 21 during this time as well. William's not the little kid. But at the same time, what if like he's like, okay, you got the kite? And William's like, yeah, I got it. And he lets go of it to go wrap the key and the lightning hits at that moment and kills William. It could have saved him from some future heartache that William's going to cause.
Yeah. I just crazy how he starts to put this stuff together. And again, he's kind of looked at as the first guy. I believe there was somebody over in Germany that was kind of in this field at the same time figuring out lightning. But as he's figuring out lightning and electricity, he comes up with the idea for lightning rods. He's testing like blunt steel rods to see how they work.
He was testing out blunts and then saw lightning hit a house and figured out there was supposed to be a steel rod. He's like, oh man, I wonder if I could build something to capture the lightning. I want to ride the lightning.
Yeah, he comes up with the idea for lightning rods.
He also figures out positive and negative.
He
maybe
puts a better name on them.
Okay.
Because there was some kind of Latin word where he's like, we can just call them positive and negative charges. He also figures out conductive materials and non-conductive materials.
So there was an instance in which, because he would do these little, what am I trying to say, like demonstrations for people where they would all get in a circle and hold hands, and he would touch an electrified device that he used through, I think, like building up static electricity with a wheel or something that would rub against it.
You've done this in high school, right?
Did what? Were you
Where
with
you
the
locked
fence?
hands and shuffled around the room, and then you had somebody walk over and touch the doorknob?
No.
Oh, yeah.
We did it with an electric fence, like cattle field and everything. But the last person was the one that got the shit end of it. Yeah. But he would have people in a circle, and he would basically, when he jolted himself or whoever was doing that, the whole group would go, huh, and you kind of see him do that. That had to be the craziest sensation. No one had ever felt anything like that before. One time while he was winding it up, he forgot he was holding one side of it and went to touch something and knocked his ass onto the floor.
Well, we're not too far away removed from the witch trials.
No.
And this dude's playing with electricity.
I know,
like
right?
That seems a little...
But he's a man.
Yeah, fair. Well, there were men that were killed for being witches too, I think.
Were there?
Yeah, that one guy that got crushed by the weight.
Oh, okay.
Giles Corey. He got crushed by the weight.
But Ben's rich.
Yeah, true.
He's rich at this point.
But you can't say that it's not a coincidence that he organizes the first homeowners insurance right in the same year that he does the lightning experiment. It feels like maybe it's...
Every homeowner's insurance policy comes with a free lightning rod. But he determines that it's not like a lightning rod that you can put like a metal ball at the top or anything like that. It has to be almost like a pointed object to be able to attract the lightning. You would then mount that on the roof and run a cable down alongside of it, and the cable would run into the ground, creating the ground for disbursement of the electricity. But this was huge because not only was this something that took off in the colonies for like churches and the stuff that was the taller things in the town that would get struck more often, he ends up going over when he eventually does make it overseas, and they've either already installed lightning rods because they've heard of his study, or he's recommending to these people that they do it, and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, let's do that.
He actually, after he does the experiment, he writes letters to a couple friends that he had made over in England, and they were brought in front of the Royal Society, and the Royal Society actually duplicated the experiment to see
how. It was a mock-up, right? It was some weird mock-up.
Yeah, because I imagine they wouldn't just go fly a kite with a key outside just in case he was wrong, like just in case this was some sort of sick prank.
You know how he could do that thing where he would turn the wheel and then you could get an object close enough to another one of the metal, and you would see the arc and it would just do the crack? I wonder if they did an experiment where they had a pointed one and a rounded one, a blunt one, and got it closer and saw which one it was attracted to the most. He's like, see? It's attracted to the pointed one the most.
You got to be pretty excited that Ben did this, right? Because without this happening, Marty doesn't go ahead and head back in the DeLorean. Because doesn't the lightning hit the clock tower, but it hits the lightning rod on the clock tower?
Yeah, but it's weird because the lightning rod on the clock tower that they install has like a ball in it, but then it's got all the little things sticking out the sides. So, I'm wondering if that's accurate now.
Still no lightning rod.
I don't know if...
No time travel.
Oh, what is it? 8.21 gigawatts? 8.21 gigawatts.
Oh, where are we at?
We are in...
1753?
Yeah, he's appointed the Deputy Postmaster General of British North America, which is a huge deal. That's British North America. And also, wasn't this him taking the place of that one dude?
Yeah, you know who's higher up on the pecking order than the Postmaster General of Pennsylvania?
The Postmaster General of British North America.
Yeah, so Bradford kind of loses his monopoly on this. I'm going to figure this out and figure that out. Also, as he's the Deputy Postmaster of the Americas, or of North America, he's able to start introducing news from other colonies to all of his papers.
Yeah.
So he's able to disseminate that information. And along with becoming this Postmaster General, he actually does a few good things that you could point to that the post office has done. I understand that that's not a phrase that can really be said much anymore, but he starts to reform the shit out of the postal system. He establishes night riders from Philadelphia to New York City to be able to get letters between those two cities within 24 hours of delivery. Like, he was that fast to be able to make that happen.
Buddy, Genghis Khan had that shit figured out too.
I know, but guess what? He was smarter than we were.
Okay.
He had figured this stuff out before that. He also didn't have to figure out the fact that what they used to do to send mail from like North Carolina, South Carolina up to New York, it used to have to travel all the way back to Britain on a ship.
Oh shit!
And then
Seriously?
and then get sorted out and brought to New York. So he was able to create these shipping lanes along the seaboard.
Can you understand how much more reliable mail had to be at that point?
Yeah.
Not just from a timing perspective. How much mail was lost just in like ships getting sunk?
Sorry, don't know what happened to your letter.
Yeah.
Have you gotten my letter yet? No, when did you send it? 4 months ago? I actually had time to come up and see you to see.
Yeah.
That was what I was writing to you about, was permission to come see your family. Just insane how much he was able to fix all of this stuff. And he introduces weekly mail delivery, and especially delivery just strictly to houses. So this isn't like a P.O. box situation. He's doing mail delivery to houses. He's able to not only connect this country via newspaper, he's able to start connecting this country via like intimate I don't know what the word was I was going for there. Communication.
Yes, there you go.
Intimate communication between just two people.
I was going to say mailification, but
Mailification works too. I
this
like
also
mailification.
gives him a huge opportunity to say, wouldn't you guys like to receive the Pennsylvania Gazette along with your mail? Or wouldn't you like to receive one of my other 13 affiliate newspapers or anything? We deliver now.
No paperboy yet, but we got a mailman.
Oh, I bet they did
goddammit.
have paper boys.
You think? Maybe that was how he figured out how to do the mail service to the home.
It might have been more of a paper man, but there was still paper delivery.
Yeah, true. It just continues the hits on making society better. In 1755, Ben forms the College of Philadelphia, which becomes the University of Pennsylvania. This is where Penn it comes from. It was Ben Franklin's own doing.
Ben made pen?
Ben made Penn. And prior to this, it was like there was Harvard in Boston and there was Yale in New York. Like there weren't a lot of colleges around to be able to.
But there wasn't one in Philly. So
No.
he makes one. He's like, hey, you know what's not here? A library. Let's make a library. You know what else isn't here? A college. Let's make a college. You know what's not anywhere? A hospital. Let's make a hospital.
He's kind of Londonifying Philadelphia with all of these different things. He's bringing them into the age of what London was.
Correct. He's adding the things that he saw that London had that just seem like they should be common sense things to have. And so he's really advancing as far as like a society. He's fast forwarding them as much as he can.
He's doing a damn good job.
Yeah.
He's looking and doing the right things to be able to push forward.
You know what's also crazy? If people don't know about Ben Franklin, no idea he's doing any of this stuff. It's just like, oh, when did he do the kite thing? And then when does he go over and when is he in France?
Yeah, we're still talking about things that Ben is less famous for doing than what he does later on in life.
I'm also wondering, too, aside from the kite thing, if you were just like, tell me about Ben Franklin, it would be kite and writing the Declaration or the Constitution. I don't think it's even them knowing that he was in France.
Yeah, probably not. He's just a founding father. They don't even know he's a founding daddy either, probably. 1754. He ends up heading a delegation to the Albany Congress along with 6 other British colonies, and they're there to discuss the relationships with Native Americans and the defenses against these French incursions from Canada. He gains inspiration from the Iroquois Confederacy, where these different tribes, these different bands had connected all together to create this confederacy, and we have pretty much 13 independent colonies, to where he's looking at it, he's like, well, if they can do it, if the savages can do it, his words, not mine,
Yes.
then we can do it.
Oh,
as,
you son of a bitch.
as Europeans. This is where you get that first kind of political satire cartoon of the join or die, the serpent that's cut up into the different sections
And then labeled as the states and everything. Yeah.
So when we see it so much with the Revolutionary War and everything, that was just the copy of Join or Die from this point in time during the Albany Congress when he writes it.
Yeah.
He proposed this plan for union of the colonies, but it wasn't adopted. He was Ben Franklin. He was a big deal. He held a lot of sway in Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania. But when you get together with all the colonies, he's still not the big fish.
There wasn't a unifying cause for the colonies. All of the colonies were under British rule, but they each did
Except for
different things.
Pennsylvania, though, mostly.
Yeah, but they each did different things, but they each liked the way they did different things. So they weren't willing to change the different things or try to compromise with each other because they didn't have a reason to. The British Crown was just concerned about like, hey, you guys are subjects of, of England or whatever. And as long as you just keep sending us the good shit that you're getting from the colonies, we're good with that. We 1957?
1757?
17, Jesus, yes, 1757.
Oh, we got to talk about this man's achievements because he just begins racking them up. The achievements in electricity are able to get him honorary degrees in the arts from Harvard and Yale. In 1757, he's given an honorary master's degree of arts from William and Mary. So you have another college, which a little bit interesting because he had actually written a few satire pieces about Harvard and about who they cater to and the rich elites and all this kind of stuff.
You want to have Ben Franklin as what you can consider an alumnus, though.
Yeah, but again, we're entering try-hard territory when he was ripping them down before, and they're
That's
like, hey,
not
do
him.
we want to give you a
That's
degree?
Yale and them being a try-hard. Okay. You're offering, listen, the guy writes like a shit piece on you or is making fun of you, and you're offering him a degree. Of course he's going to be like, yeah, I'll come take your guy's degree from you. I don't have to do anything. It's an honorary degree. It's just another feather in my cap.
Yeah, just he runs them down, and they're like, hey, you want a degree?
Don't try to bring Ben down.
1756, I guess that was before that. He organizes the Pennsylvania military, which is just another huge advancement. 1757, this is when Ben takes his second trip to England as well.
Yeah, so 1757, he is actually sent to England by the Pennsylvania Assembly as a colonial agent to protest against the political influence of the Penn family, who are the namesakes to, dun dun dun, Pennsylvania. So the Penn family had not been paying taxes, is that correct?
They owned still a very, very large portion of Pennsylvania.
But they were stationed, except for, I think, some family member who was in the colonies. The main family, or whoever was actually in charge, the figurehead of the family, was back in London because I'm not going to live in the colonies. That's just where I get my money from. But because of the land owned and everything, there were still taxes to be paid that could be used in the colonies. So regardless if he was paying taxes on his shit that he owned in London, that money that's being paid to the British Crown is then able to be used, and they're not sending any of that over to the colonies. The guy was basically utilizing the land but not paying any taxes that could be used by the colonies, right?
Yeah, just they were elitist British people. William Penn had gone to the trouble of creating Pennsylvania, basically like the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, and giving them all of this authority to be able to make and create laws in Pennsylvania. But as members of the Penn family, they believed that they couldn't be forced to follow those laws because they sat above the House of Representatives that were making them.
Correct.
And as the Penn family is pushing back against that and saying, well, that's cool, you guys can bring all of these different suggestions to us, but ultimately we're the decision makers. Ben's throwing it back in their face and saying, your father, William Penn, gave us this power. And they're like, well, Daddy ain't around anymore. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Wasn't his power to give.
Yep. New business, new management at this point. This trip was supposed to be pretty quick. He ends up spending 5 years in London. Mm-hmm. And during these 5 years, he brought over William. They kind of go in like this search for their ancestry.
Yeah, they travel all around. They find out where they're from. I do think this is when he takes a trip across. It's either this is it is this trip. He takes a trip across the channel, and he goes over to Germany. Like they take a little vacation basically around Europe at this point.
Well, he's got to go around a little bit and, collect some love from all these people that already know about Ben Franklin because of his scientific
People
advancements.
want to see him.
Yeah. Ben Franklin's a man that's in demand.
You're the kite guy. You're the key guy.
As a man that's in demand, Ben begins to find himself in the company of his landlady, Margaret Stevenson, and maybe also in the company of her daughter, Polly. Ben has a penchant for this. He writes that one of his virtues is chastity, but he can't seem to control that silver-tongued wit enough to be able to stop attracting all these women. Do you think that Ben wants to flirt with all these women?
God,
No.
you think I want to be charming? You think I want all these women and their daughters just throwing themselves at me? It's disgusting.
That's the thing about Ben. It wasn't like a woman looked at Ben and like, God damn, I gotta have me a slice of that.
But if she looked at him, he went, Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
She was like, oh my God. Here's the thing, too. As soon as he opened mouth and started talking, he was more eloquent and charming than anybody else in the room. He was also like, to the people in London and everything, someone from the colonies was probably a little bit of like,
Exotic.
yeah, it was kind of exotic, kind of like a ruffian and everything.
They might have had an accent at that point.
Yeah, or might have lost the accent at that point. While he was in London, he would occasionally attend these things, meetings of the Hellfire Club. And no, not the one from Stranger Things, not the one from X-Men. This is the Hellfire Club that would perform mock religious rituals, would engage in excessive revelry and debauchery. Sex workers were referred to as nuns, and a library of pornographic materials was also available. Now, not to say that Ben partook in any of this, because history claims that Ben was just simply a laid-back observer.
Wasn't this in Ireland? Or Scotland?
I think this was in London.
Because I could have sworn we talked about this during one of the histories of. I know we'd gotten an email about it, I'm pretty sure, about this Hellfire Club.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in London.
Okay.
Because the guys would dress up like in monk robes and everything.
It sounded like a pretty wild place.
This doesn't sound like Scottish people or Irish people doing this. This is fuck up Anglo people. People in London with too much time doing this stuff.
Another secret society, though.
Mm-hmm.
Another place that Ben can be like, yeah, I got in. They let me in.
Now, the entire time that he's also coming over here, he's not trying to do anything against like the crown or technically parliament or anything like that. This is the grieve. Exactly. He is so pro-empire. He thinks what's good for the British Empire is good for the Americas. What's good for the Americas is good for the British Empire. He right now sees nothing that's going to separate these two.
Not to change course again. Montpelier Hill near Dublin, Ireland is famous for the ruins of the 18th century Hellfire Club hunting lodge that was built on a prehistoric burial site, leading to numerous ghost stories and legends of occult activity. So they had a hunting lodge in Ireland that they would go stay at and just do all of this debauchery out there in the field. But
I'm sure they also had locations in London.
They were in London.
Oh,
but
okay.
Like I said, this was their hunting lodge.
That's where where
they went to party outside.
That's where they went to go do the real crazy shit that they couldn't risk getting caught in London.
Yeah. Okay. Back to his time in England.
So he's completely just all on board. He loves the monarchy, he loves the empire and everything. And he's simply there to talk to this aristocrat, of the Penn family to basically shore up what's going on and bring his grievances also to Parliament to let him know, hey, this guy's not paying his taxes. Well, this guy also happened to, I don't know if he was in Parliament, but he had a lot of friends because, again, he lives there. He's part of that higher class of society, and they're basically like, get out of here. So he's starting to also see that Parliament isn't exactly the super honorable institution that he wants them to be.
But he's in, though. He's still hook, line, and sinker for the crown. And there's points in time when he's over there to when he starts talking to the Penn family. He says, that the crown would be fine taking this in as another royal colony, right? You understand that the only reason that you're allowed to own Pennsylvania is because England is okay with you owning Pennsylvania. Like there start to be these veiled threats towards the Penn family that if they don't play ball, he could talk the crown into going over and taking it for themselves.
Yeah.
And turning them into, I guess, another vassal. But it turns out to where the Penns finally agree to a little bit of taxation, but also like nowhere near what anybody else is paying, and their payments are never really on time. It's just kind of a, when we think about it, we'll get you guys that kind of tax money. After those 5 years are up, he ends up returning. I believe that would have been
1764 is when he comes back to Pennsylvania and is elected Speaker of the Pennsylvania House.
pretty fast. That was like he got back, they elected him Speaker of the House.
He got shit done.
Yeah.
They sent him over there to talk to the Penn family. He got at least it somewhat complete. And so, yeah, he comes back and they're like, let's keep this guy rolling.
For a minute.
Yeah.
Because he gets elected May 1764 and ends up losing his seat in October after these anti-proprietary party members who are pro-Penn, who don't want any sort of taxation on the Penns, don't believe that, and also don't want English rule, are basically able to garner enough votes to be able to push him out completely.
So what does he do at that point?
Well, he is dispatched back to England once again. He continues the Penn fight. This was the other part of that we missed. 1763, William is appointed the colonial governor of New Jersey.
Okay.
So
That's right. Yep.
you have William stepping in not as a member of the colonies, but under British control New Jersey.
Such a crazy position for this guy to find him in. And it goes to show like the kind of, I don't know if it's persuasion or pull or fame or whatever it is that Ben Franklin has, because he's able to take basically an illegitimate child who is from and born in the colonies and put them into and get them to be put into a position that is normally reserved by people, military officers, people who are part of the aristocracy going over to the colonies. The governor of the New Jersey area that's a huge freaking deal.
Yeah. It also goes to show you how dyed in the wool of Ben Franklin was.
Yeah.
Ben Franklin wanted the colonies to be a part of England. He felt that they were the crown jewel in all of England's holdings.
Because what was the alternative at that point?
Yeah.
Like there was never an example of anything being an alternative, and there was never an example of any of these colonies failing. And so in his eyes, he's just like, everything is going to work. There was never even a concept of being like, what would we do without the British Empire? There was never even a reason to think about that.
Yeah, what would you need a reason for? Everything's working out just fine.
Yeah.
And that kind of indoctrination turned Will into enough of a pro-England person that they just went ahead and made him governor. It blows me away that that's as far as it goes. So yeah, William gets appointed governor of New Jersey. Of course, Ben goes back to England and continues this fight with the Penn family trying to get somewhere. 1765, Stamp Act comes into play.
Talked about this during the Declaration of Independence or the American Revolution. Okay.
Yeah. I think this was the first episode of the Revolutionary War two-parter. But the Stamp Act is something that Ben Franklin looks at and he's like, not bad.
Yeah.
Don't hate this.
We were already kind of kicking around a possible idea of doing this to raise taxes back home. And it's a good thing that he did not do it back home, because this is not even implemented by him. He has nothing to do with it, but he's going to have enough say to where once this Stamp Act goes into effect, you have to have these representatives that are going to be basically the stamp distributors in these areas, in these states, and in these larger areas. And once it goes into effect, he recommends his friend John Hughes, not the movie guy,
Director.
yeah, to the post of stamp distributor in Pennsylvania, basically making everybody think that he supported the Stamp Act. And this completely blows up in Ben Franklin's face because the people back in the colonies are like, fuck this. This is where taxation without representation starts becoming a thing, because the Stamp Act affects any printed materials that are coming in. So anything coming on paper, playing cards, all of that kind of stuff is going to require these stamps. That's going to require this additional tax to be charged.
Who would be the biggest beneficiary of a need to sell paper? A publisher, you think?
Yeah.
A newspaper man?
Yeah. So when he hears this thing that's like, we're going to do this Stamp Act, he's just like, well, I mean, worse things could happen to me. So yeah, let's go with that.
Bad things happened to John Hughes. John Hughes got his ass kicked.
Yes. They had gotten like an effigy of him and like burned it in front of his shop.
Pretty bad deal for John Hughes. Also not a great deal for Debbie, because they end up going to Franklin's house in Philadelphia and basically start rioting around the house looking to burn it down. I'm sure Debbie was inside looking for her homeowner's insurance to see if this is covered.
This fucking lightning rod isn't going to save us from this. She ends up putting in a call and getting some people to show up with some guns and basically kind of like barricades the house.
Yeah. But they successfully defend the house.
They do. They hold off the mob.
And then you have Ben, who realizes from all of these letters that he's getting back home about how poorly this is going. He ends up testifying during these House of Commons proceedings, and their questioning is along the lines of, do you think the colonies are going to take this well? And Ben says, no.
Based on what I've heard, not well. I think they asked him 134 different questions regarding the reaction of the colonies to this. And like you said, a lot of them were on the lines of just what the escalation would be. So like, how are they taking it? Not well. Do you think they're going to get violent? And he's like, I mean, no, but at the same time, this is provocation. Like, why would you guys even do this?
Well, along this questioning,
I got to go back.
Yeah.
I got to live there.
Along this questioning, they say, do you think there will be violence? And he says, no. And they say, do you think this would be a situation that if we sent the army over to enforce this, it would happen? And he goes, but why would you send an army to fight unarmed individuals?
Your own people.
Yeah. And they go, well, in case it happens, he goes, I believe at that point in time, you would be met with force. You would turn them into somebody who would create this problem. And they actually listen to Ben. They end up repealing this. Unfortunately, they repeal it and then throw in the Townsend Act, which was way worse and did not go over well. But this is kind of the first little crack in the armor that Ben sees where he's like, oh, I don't really know quite if they have our best interest at heart. Along those lines, again, we missed 1762. He receives an honorary doctorate from Oxford. So now he is Dr. Ben Franklin. We have Dr. Ben.
And he also, I think, received one from University of Edinburgh.
Possibly.
And I think something else. So he was knocking them out pretty much wherever he was going. Kind of the turning point where Ben starts to kind of see the corruption, not just the corruption, but the unfair treatment of who just wanted to be treated equally as British subjects because that's what they were over in the colonies. They wanted the same type of representation and treatment that people that were already in England were receiving. And Parliament determined that the American colonists should share the cost of the French and Indian War with a tax levy on them. Now,
don't disagree.
No. But
yeah, I'm just saying, from at this point in time, my thoughts are this isn't the craziest thing for England to do.
Correct. If it was just that, would be different if all of the work would have been done shipping everybody over there from Britain to fight in this war. Now, Franklin's argument is that America had already contributed heavily to the defense. They had outfitted and paid 250,000 soldiers to fight France. That was as many as Great Britain itself had actually sent, and they spent millions from the American treasuries to do so. So in his opinion, they had already paid for their share of it, and basically Britain was wanting to then double dip and tax them for it in addition to that.
Do you think that when they were calling bullshit on this, Ben pulled out a receipt for the 50 cannons that he bought, and he walks up and he slaps it down. He goes, "This came out of my own money.
Yeah.
I was never reimbursed.
Should I
for
send
this."
you? Should I tax you for this shit?
Well, so there was a wild argument. Did you hear his Germany argument? Holy shit. So his Germany argument was brilliant because, as we know through the monarchy episodes, Germans were the ones that came over with William the Conqueror and kind of set up England.
Yeah.
He asked them if he felt like it would be fair for the British people to send a 1 to 2% tax to the Germanic people for all of the times that the Germanic people protected them against England.
Yeah.
And England's like, don't like that argument. Bad argument. No, that doesn't sound good to us. But it's just his sort of Socratic method of breaking things down to just the base level of, you got us to the Americas, now you're taxing us. Germany got you to England and created your culture, so do you in turn owe Germany for all the times that they protected you as a proto-society?
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about us.
That was 1,000 years ago, man. Give us a break.
1772, Franklin actually obtained these letters from the governor and the lieutenant governor of the province of Massachusetts Bay that were proving that they had encouraged the crown to crack down on these Bostonians who had been protesting and all of this stuff due to like the Stamp Act, the Townshend Act, all of this. So you have the people actually from those cities writing to the king being like, these people are getting out of control. You need to do something about it and send in some troops.
Well, if we know anything of Boston history from this point in time, Governor Tom Hutchinson of Massachusetts Bay had written a letter, like you say, for crackdown on Bostonians. March 5th, 1770, you have the Boston Massacre that started because there were Bostonians that were throwing snowballs at the soldiers who ended up killing 5 colonists. This looks pretty interesting to Ben because now he's seeing these letters asking for help along with what happened during the Boston Massacre, and he starts putting 2 and 2 together. He doesn't want to be the only one that holds this information.
No. So what do? Ben sends these letters back to North America, back to the colonies, and they're leaked into the Boston Gazette in 1773, which basically causes this huge political shitstorm in Massachusetts and raises a bunch of questions in England about how the colonists got this information. Now, they're able to deduce that there's only so many sources that this information was privy to and where it could have come from.
But not Ben.
Oh, no, they know it's Ben.
They held somebody else on trial for disseminating these letters.
They eventually find out.
He admits it.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he sees that somebody's about to take the blame for his crime.
That's right. And then that's when they drag him into the cockpit.
Yep, yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
God damn it, it got me again. Along those lines, December 16th, 1773, you had the Boston Tea Party, which of course is going to royally piss off everybody in London at this point. January 29th, 1774, Big Ben gets called into the cockpit, and he goes in front of something called the Privy Council.
Now, why do they call it the cockpit?
Because I figure all of Parliament's a cockpit, right? Because there weren't any women in there, and it was just a dick measuring contest.
Why'd they really
between
call
all
it the
dudes.
cockpit?
They call it the cockpit because this is where Henry VIII, the famous Henry VIII, used to watch cockfights.
Quite literally, the room in which Henry VIII used to watch cockfights.
And apparently they liked that it was in the round and it had elevated seating where they could grill people.
I wonder if this was also like a sign of... Because they just basically pull him in there and just berate his ass and basically cast him out. And part of me also thinks that the location of this is chosen due to the disrespect possibly of being like, this is where the king used to watch just, fucking cockfights.
Where he used to watch chickens tear each other apart.
And so there's almost a disrespect of bringing you into a room that, I don't know, that used to serve that low of a function, like a societal function that was kind of like looked down upon, that this is where we're going to basically strip you of all of your... not like honor, but basically of your dignity, or attempt to do it at least.
I think all those words are correct because you have the Solicitor General, this guy named Alexander Wedderburn, was a Scotsman. that just tore into him. And then you have everybody else on the Privy Council in the round just basically acting like a Jerry Springer audience and reacting to everything that Wedderburn says. And from kind of what everybody could gather, Ben went into the cockpit as a loyalist, and Ben left the cockpit as an American, as a revolutionary. This is the turning point when he realizes that they aren't looked at as this crown of the English Empire.
They're second-class citizens. They're looked down upon by the naturalized people in England, and they're looked upon as not just subjects of the crown, but almost as a form of subjects of just the normal British or English people.
Ben never forgets his time in the cockpit. Ben gets his revenge a little bit later on. He doesn't end up returning to Philly until March of 1775, which is a real bummer because in December 19th of 1774, while he was gone, his wife, Deborah, dies of a stroke. He's informed of a letter. He doesn't go back. He misses the funeral and everything, I'm sure, because the letter took forever to get there, and it still would have taken a month for him to get back had he left.
He had received letters that she was ill and everything like that. I don't know if he just didn't know the severity of it. Again, this guy gets tunnel vision. Not sure if he didn't know if he could get back in time or anything like that. But this was something that I felt like, in a weird way, like maybe he couldn't run away from until a certain point. And then once he realized there was nothing left for him in London to do, he makes that determination to go home.
Yeah, absolutely. Even prior to that, you have the shots at Lexington and Concord that get fired off April 19th, 1775.
He comes home
A
to
different
the
world.
kickoff of the American Revolution because, he comes home and the First Continental Congress had already occurred while he was in England.
How wild is that?
I know, right?
They did all this stuff without Ben. But then again, I guess you think we're still not... Ben, at this point in time, has rose to the level of stardom where he's the agent to England for 6 or 7 colonies. So he is well known by people in other colonies. But this was such a matter of importance that they're like, fuck it, we can't wait for Ben to get back.
He leaves when he's gone for this. This is a 5-year period he's gone for?
I think it was 10.
Okay, that's right. The first one. Okay, yeah. So he ends up going there. And as he leaves, he is rah, go England. He comes back, and as he's walking off the boat, I want to imagine that there's a bunch of the revolutionary people, and they're just like, what's the deal? And he's like, fuck them, we're going independent. And everyone's like, huzzah, you're going to go ahead and be our unanimous choice for the Pennsylvania delegate to the Second Continental Congress. So he's off the boat, and they're like, Second Continental Congress, you're our guy, get it done.
They're not quite sure where Ben's loyalties lie at this point in time till he gets off the boat. And there's a couple British soldiers standing in port, and Ben just grabs his nuts and he thrusts towards them. They're like, oh shit, Ben's full us.
Yeah.
Ben's on our side now. Yeah, it was that fast. He gets back.
Hey, Tommies, fuck you, you lobsters.
Gives him a crotch chop, fucking gets off the boat. He gets back March 17th.
Big Ben's back in town, bitches.
Suck on this. March 1775. The Second Continental Congress kicks off May 10th, 1775. So he's home for March, April, and then May. He's just right into it with all these guys. And again, this comes the weird point in time where this is the first time that we have the founding fathers, the first time that George Washington and Ben Franklin are in a room together. The first time that Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin are meeting or happening at this Second Continental Congress. So for as important as the first one is, the second one, I believe, is kind of where everything flows together, and they decide that it's time to write this Declaration of Independence.
Now, at this point, he's temporarily disabled by gout. This is due to his lifestyle where he's not getting a ton of exercise. He likes to flirt with the ladies. He likes to, partake of delectable foods that probably aren't the best for him. As
Organ
well as some
meats.
drink. Yes.
You get what's called uric acid that comes from any sort of organ meats. I believe it's kind of a lot of iron.
Yeah.
And then all this uriatic acid and these crystals start to form in soft flesh. So it happens down in his foot. And it basically, I mean, as a portly man already.
Then I got a bad case of the gout. Again, this is going back to the Navy beans that we did during the bonus episode.
To have a bum wheel for this guy's not good.
So they actually, he doesn't attend a lot of the meetings, but he ends up coming in making just really several small but very important changes to the draft that's sent in by Thomas Jefferson.
He gets appointed to the Committee of the Five.
Yes, that's right.
Is what they were called to draft it. And his changes weren't monumental, but we haven't really talked about Ben's religious views because he was very simple in his beliefs. He was most notably something called a deist. And a deist is just somebody who believes in a divine creator, but then he believed that once the creation was made, it was kind of like he took a step back. He didn't interfere in daily life.
His thought process is best summed up when he was explaining to somebody why he was pro lightning rod, basically. And they're like, you realize that using that lightning rod is an affront to God because you're essentially saying you're trying to prevent God's divine justice from happening and everything. He's like, yeah, but it fucking hails outside and we don't just stand out in it. We go in and we built roofs and shelters to do this. So shouldn't we all be just standing out in the hail if that's supposed to be some type of like divine occurrence or anything like that? And he's like, yeah, fuck you. Install the lightning rod.
Get up on that roof.
Uh-huh. Why don't you be the lightning rod?
You smell like some sort of a pervert. You get on that roof. You pay for this. You know what? I'm revoking your homeowner's insurance.
Policy canceled.
So his little changes are, instead of using more of a traditionally religious language, he changes things to, we believe these truths to be self-evident. Instead of us being basically divinely granted these rights, all these rights are just common sense. Everybody should be able to look at this and it should just be common sense to everybody.
Hey, idiot.
At the signing, he's also credited with the signature line of, we all need to hang together or we will surely be hung separately. As this was basically them, like we talked about in the Declaration episode, they were signing the death warrant because if this didn't go well, if the revolution didn't happen...
Oh, I could be very sure that we're all going to hang separately. Yeah.
Everybody's going down for this. He's not around for too much longer after that because June 1776, we have July 4th, 1776 is when the Declaration of Independence is signed. October 26th, 1776, Ben gets sent off to France. Ben's sent there for diplomatic reasons. His grandson, who is also illegitimate from William.
Yes, so Ben's illegitimate son, William, middle name Temple Franklin. They end up just calling him Temple. He serves as Ben's secretary when he goes to France. Now, when he had taken William with him to London, yes, there had been some ladies of the night. I don't know if they were like a father-son tag team type situation that was going on for bonding, but same type of deal happened with William. He has a kid, and now Ben is basically taking him and raising him as his kid.
This was prior to the Eiffel Tower being built, so there couldn't have been a Franklin Eiffel Tower being...
No, that was the London Bridge or something like that. They called it the London Bridge or something like that. Yeah.
The Franklin London Bridge over there.
Yeah.
So hilariously, though, he puts the kid up for adoption in England. He ends up getting adopted in England. William goes back to the United States, or goes back to the colonies, and then as Ben is coming back, he's pulls him up out of his adopted family. He's like, I'm taking you back.
He's like, what are you doing? Yeah, you're coming with me, kid. I fucked up with the first one. Now I'm going to have to try to fix it on this second one.
He said that when they came back after he brought him back to England, or brought him back to the colonies, that was the first time William had met him. Was he came back down to meet his father once they returned.
It's also really crazy to think about. So when he sails for France, if they were intercepted by a British warship or anything like that, he would have been arrested. So they had to end up leaving in the middle of the night. It was this clandestine mission. It wasn't even Ben going over there as a representative of the Continental Congress or anything. He was supposed to basically play it off like he was there kind of in a private citizen type capacity. and try to work his way into the good graces of the French royal court and of the king to try to get help for the Americans in the American Revolution. And
Boy, did he blend in.
oh my God.
It's a very scary thought, though. Just as you said that, I just realized it. It's pretty fucking hard to get to France without driving right by England. Or
Yeah, but they
sailing
did have,
right around
but they
England.
also did have France and Spain were on the same side, so you could have a lot of access to get down there to go Spain,
Yeah.
and then go in that way instead of trying to
Okay.
hit the north of France or go through Gibraltar and hit like the south of France. I'm not sure how he ended up getting there, but as he's selected, I kind of wonder what the selection process was to be like. So who wants to go over and be our ambassador to France? Ben's like, listen, I don't have, my wife's gone. I don't have anything here. And honestly, I'm charming as shit. I'm famous over there already. Because that's technically one of the things as well. There had to be a reason for an American representative to be there. Ben was already famous over there. So when he came up over there wearing this fur cap that he was wearing because he had caught something on the way over there and he had some like sores on his head or something like that, he was wearing it to cover him up. The French just eat this shit up and they're like, this is the rustic, like new world man. But he was also this weird folksy frontier philosopher to them. And they just ate the shit up because he was very much not like, this was still a time when they're powdering themselves and it's men wearing, the royal tights and everything like that
Wigs.
in court.
They're wearing wigs.
And they're wearing wigs. And did you know that the reason why all of those French women and the men have that one black dot that they add to themselves, that's fake. Usually when they're dressed up in all their white makeup and everything like that, like Marie Antoinette times, they would have a black dot that was supposed to look like a beauty mark or a birthmark. That was from when like pox were a thing.
Oh.
And it was when they used to wear those to cover up like scars and everything.
I guess I had never thought about it after Marilyn Monroe.
But hers was an actual beauty mark.
Yeah.
This used to be a way to cover up like pock marks.
Oh, so this wasn't a sign of beauty. This was just a way to cover up the okay.
Correct, but then it became
Okay.
associated with that
Yeah.
because then that's how like people like the aristocracy used to cover up those marks. So you'd always have like one of those.
Well, let's not get Ben's story twisted here because Ben wasn't a frontiersman. Ben wasn't an outdoorsman. Ben picked up this cap as he had gone up to Canada to try to get them recruited onto the revolutionary
Because it was
side.
cold as shit, and then he just
Yeah.
had it with him because
Yeah.
he wasn't sure if it was going to be cold in France. He ends up having to send back an order to Canada and be like, "You got to send me more of these like raccoon skin hats."
Yep. Yeah, so this was Ben showing up and all the French people being like, "Holy shit, the stereotypes are true." And Ben's like, "Yeah, we're all frontiersmen over there."
It's like someone showing up in a fucking cowboy, and that's be like, "That's what American looks like."
Never mind that I live in downtown Philadelphia.
But he was like insanely well spoken and smart. So it was this weird thing where they're just like, you look like you should be a yokel, but you're insanely entertaining. All the women love you. You're this old kind of pervert dude who's hitting on all these young women. And the reason that they loved that in France was that there was this thing that the French called amorous friendship. And basically, this is all these relationships is just heavy flirting, super intimate letters, and then like public displays of affection that almost never led to actual sex. It was just the perception of just like, there was a thing about kissing necks and everything because you didn't want to kiss their face because the makeup might come off. So he's like, French women would always have you just kiss their necks or allow me to always kiss their necks.
Is this where the term polyamory gets its
Well, I guess
amorous
because
relationships?
Poly means multiple.
Yeah.
And then amorous has to mean something about
multiple amorous relationships?
Yeah.
Also, they just stopped the makeup at the face. They
They
weren't
still
trying
did powder, but I guess it wasn't as prominent or heavy around the neck and everything. And if it's going to get messed up, you can at least disguise it kind of around your neck.
And they were probably wearing the big ass collars in case he
Probably.
was sucking
And
neck
it's
a little
closer
too
to
much.
the boobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, Big Ben was giving out a lot of hickeys in France, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
He was a hickey king. Ben the Hickey Man is
That's
what they
right.
called him, probably.
He had a friend there that had heard about him and everything that allowed him to stay in like his summer home in this Parisian suburb called Passy. He was getting a lot of pussy in Passy, I'm guessing. And yeah, this new world genius, this rustic guy ends up coming in. He's flirting with all of these women. And from the outside, it looks like he is just doing fuck all and just having the time of his life. But he's not there as a representative of this new country. He has to first get in with like the ambassador, or not the ambassador. I'm trying to remember what the guy's title would have been.
Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette fucking loved this guy.
Oh, yeah, once he finally got in to meet. But you can't just walk in and be like, I'm Ben Franklin.
I think he did. I think he was that famous.
He had to establish, I think, a relationship with the guy that was going to be like the ambassador, and then he got him in to actually meet with the court. And once he met with the court, it's this guy coming in that doesn't look anything like them, that doesn't dress anything like them. He liked to assimilate a little bit, but he just loved the fact that they had already heard about him. He was on snuff boxes. He was on like china. He was on plates and everything. They had Ben Franklin memorabilia already there.
Pretty big deal.
And France at this point too, again, Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake type time frame. France is not doing well. They've spent a lot of money because they're always fucking fighting with England. And there's a general sense of just like kind of despair in France. And a huge portion of the population is living in like abject poverty.
They just lost Canada to England.
Oh, that's right.
So they already have an axe to grind against England. The coffers are empty. And it's not so much, Ben's floating by on personality. He's crushing it. But the biggest problem with what Ben is trying to get accomplished in France is the Revolutionary Army is not putting up, or the Continental Army is not putting up any sort of a fight that's giving the French any belief that they should be backing them. Mm-hmm. They're losing quite a bit to what the British are doing. So as they're losing, Ben's over there saying, hey, if you guys just throw us a little bit of money, you know, send some stuff our way, we can turn this thing around. We can end up beating Britain. Aren't you still angry about them taking parts of, or your part of Canada? Shouldn't you still be pissed off and want to do that? And the French royal court's looking at him like, you guys haven't won at all. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to give you money and give you resources, and you're going to continue to get your ass kicked, and we're going to potentially lose to England again?
We're going to give you money when we don't really have any money to give out right now?
Yeah, there was just so much going against Ben. That is until October 1777.
It was the French foreign minister. Name was Charles Gravier.
Ooh.
And so he was the one that had dealt with him because he was the foreign minister. He had to get in good with him. This is the guy that when John Adams ended up showing up, John Adams was telling this guy how the French should be fighting and everything. And he was like, I'm only dealing with Ben Franklin from now on. And then goes to Ben, gives him John's letters and is like, I want you to send these back to your guys' Congress because I want John Adams out of here.
He shouldn't be here. He doesn't understand. He doesn't have your cachet.
John Adams was apparently just a fucking wet blanket in these places. He was extremely smart, very shrewd diplomat. He wanted the best for, you know, America and everything, but he had no clue how to deal with the French. And when he ended up showing up, he's looking at Ben Franklin, hanging out with all these women, basically going to all these salons and these dinner parties and everything. He's like, you're not doing any work. And Franklin's just looking at him and been like, I'm doing all the fucking work.
You think this gets taken care of in court? No.
Yeah.
No, I'm working the ground level on all this.
You don't come asking favors. You have to make them like you and want to give you favors.
Do you think I want to drink all this French wine and French all these French women? No, but I have to do this to save our country.
I'm old. Do you think this doesn't just tire me out all the time?
Do you know how much energy it takes to be a 70-year-old sexual dynamo?
There was a woman that was half his age. I can't remember if it was this junior musician, this musician that was 38 years old.
I gotcha.
Okay.
You're speaking of the married Anne-Louise Briand.
I believe so.
Or no. Yes. They had a pretty decent relationship.
They would meet up, once or twice a week to have tea and just talk and everything like that.
And like you said, she was a composer. She was somebody who was a deep thinker that could have these conversations with Ben. Ben floated the idea a couple times for her to leave her husband and run off with him. She ultimately kind of put her foot down, and they had a bit of just basically a close friendship to where she considered him a father figure because she was half his age.
He still wrote some pretty
Yeah.
pretty dicey things to her.
There's the reason that we call him the founding daddy and not the founding father is because that relationship that he had back in England with Stevenson, who had the daughter Polly. Polly would call him daddy as well. Anne Louise ended up also calling him daddy. So he collected this daddy moniker throughout his time over in Europe because he was kind of an older father figure while still just being a full-blown pervert at the same time. So he collected this well. He also had this French woman. She was a widow. She owned a salon, not the hair salon, but an area to talk. She ran a boarding house. Her name was Anne Catherine de Lingville. Don't know how to say that in French. Lingve. She was 60, so they were a lot closer in age. Yeah. And Ben Franklin proposed to this woman on 3 different occasions.
Yeah, she had 18 cats, right?
She had a lot of cats.
She had a lot of cats. No, I'm dead serious. I think it noted that she had 18 cats.
Yeah, Ben was trying to catch up 1 cat per proposal, I think, at that point in time.
She wanted to maintain her independence, and she was like, sorry, sweetheart.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it is it wasn't that he wasn't charming and that she didn't want to do it. She just didn't want to get back with another husband. She didn't want the shackles of a husband on her. Both these women seem like pretty cool broads for sure. To get back to his kind of main reasoning there, October 1777, the Continental Army, not the Confederate Army. We don't want to talk about their wins. The Continental Army wins at Saratoga, and confidence is boosted. It's boosted enough that he ends up signing this critical military alliance February 6, 1778 with France. Now, when he goes to sign this partnership, he shows up in this gray coat. And the last time that he wore this gray coat is when he was in the cockpit getting berated in England.
So he's like, the last time I wore this, I was being berated by a bunch of asshats and wigs in England. Now I'm using it to sign this thing that's hopefully going to help us beat England. One other last thing about John Adams. So John Adams had famously remarked that while he had to learn French from textbooks, Franklin learned French from the pillow talk of his French mistresses. Which, I mean, immersion, that's how you're going to learn it the best.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn it from textbooks.
I wonder if there were any like turns of phrase or anything like that he just used in common everyday French conversations. They're like, what the fuck? Are you trying to bang me right now?
Yeah.
Are you flirting with me, sir? He's like, no, I'm just trying to order breakfast.
Yeah. He's like, Ben taught me this. So yeah, as Ben was instrumental in gathering French support and everything like that, John ends up being sent to, I want to say it was Holland, so he doesn't mess up the deal. And is trying to basically, they're like, can you go just talk to the Dutch to see if they can give us some money too? Before John gets there, he had these 2 envoy members. And I think this is kind of why John immediately is like, he's fucking around. These 2 other envoy members, Silas Deane and Arthur Lee, both felt the exact same way. They were both over there trying to aid Ben in getting all of this relief. And while they were getting shut down trying to speak to all these members of the French aristocracy, they kept looking like, where's Ben? Why is he not pounding the pavement with us too? And so when John Adams shows up and he speaks to, I believe Silas Deane ends up getting sent away. It must have been Arthur Lee speaking to John Adams. John kind of gets the rundown, and he's like, "Oh, he's fucking around. We're hosed. This isn't going to happen." One of the things too that they would talk about is the fact that the women that he was hanging out with were the wives of all of these like military officers, these higher standing guys in society, and they would be coming back and telling them stories that Ben had told them, not the pervy shit or anything like that, but the stuff that he had told them about America and against Britain and everything. And he was doing this to try to get his name in their ears and try to get them to be on the side of like, yeah, we should go ahead and put a little pressure to help the Americans. And his way of slow playing it was that, listen, I can't order them to go do this stuff. They have to find their own way to it, or they're not going to put resources into it. So I made it out to be like helping us is definitely going to go ahead and get payback against Britain. It's going to make them weaker. Why don't you maybe go down and start raiding in the Caribbean? And so the French showed up. They didn't just show up to the continental United States to start helping out the Revolutionary Army. They first went down and were just basically besieging like the British colonial holdings that were down in the Caribbean, trying to take those first and foremost. They eventually worked their way up and started helping out in the Revolutionary War, but it was some time before they did that. And it got to the point too where Congress kind of sent some information or sent some letters to Franklin and was like, hey, we don't feel like you're doing a super great job. We don't think you're being assertive enough or aggressive enough in trying to do these negotiations. And he just sends them back a letter and he's like, you know what, guys, I'm tired. I'm getting old here and everything like that. Go ahead and send me a replacement. And as soon as he sent this letter, Congress was just like, you know what, we'll shut the fuck up because you're the only one that can probably do this in this scenario. And we'll just go ahead and back down.
Just to point to some of Ben's achievements at this time, too, he had already secured over $2 million in direct loans from France, and then also received an additional $6 million in livres. Don't know what the fuck that was. Yeah, livre. Just in a gift. So nothing that they were going to have to repay the French. That was what he was getting to supply the troops with uniforms, to supply their pay, ammo, weapons.
That's
all
what I'm
that
saying.
shit.
Is not only was he getting this money, he was then having to make connections within France to buy all this stuff, to buy boots, to buy uniforms, to buy weapons, and then coordinate shipments to actually get that stuff over. He was doing a shit ton of work.
I wonder if it pissed Ben off even more when he realized that the French were just planning on going down and raiding the Caribbean, and he saw the British response to the pressure that put on them. Because then he not only realizes that, A, the colonies aren't on level or on par with what they think the English are, but then they realize that he's also playing basically third fiddle because all of those moneymakers down in the Caribbean are doing much better business for the British than the colonies are. The colonies, you're getting shit from the colonies, but most of the stuff that you're getting from the colonies are just excess of what you're doing in England.
Yeah.
When you go down to the Caribbean and you talk about the sugar and everything else that they're importing from those islands, those are the moneymakers. Those are the ones that make that make England go because that's where they're getting all their money from.
And he does some stuff to try to light a fire under the French because they haven't technically signed he wants them to sign an agreement of friendship and trade and mutual support, basically asking them that when they sign this, they are recognizing this as the United States of America, having one of the largest two superpowers in the world, giving essentially credibility and acknowledging that you are your own country is huge on the world stage. They haven't signed this yet. And so and there's still representatives of the British government in Paris that are like at the embassy. There's still this weird, diplomacy going on between these two countries. And so there are people that Ben Franklin can meet with that are representatives of the crown. And he basically puts himself in a situation where he is seen going and meeting with representatives from the British crown and making it seem like they're working on some type of negotiation or partnership to basically let the French know, hey, this opportunity you have to weaken the British by helping us separate from them can be slipping away because we might be in the middle of a reconciliation here. He basically tells the British representative, hey, this shit's not going anywhere. The guy gets pissed off and everything, but the intent is to get the French to get off their asses. And when he comes back and speaks to this foreign minister, he's like, so what is it that you're wanting? What is it that we can do to try to kind of get this? He's like, I just want that agreement of friendship and trade and for our us to basically have an agreement that we are mutual allies. And part of that being is that you'll help us in war. And he's like, let's go ahead and get this thing drawn up.
Well, the French didn't know the extent of communication going on between Ben and England because as a part of this newly formed colonial French team, the French were supposed to be in on all these negotiations too. So Ben was holding his hand out to the French and taking their money while writing letters to the Brits trying to get this all squared away. I think partially knowing that the French weren't going to want the Brits
He was doing it to goad the French into kind of
Yeah.
like, getting a move on.
didn't want them to just have the British capitulate, because this is also really good for the French, because as they're down there raiding in the Caribbean and attacking all these English strongholds down there, that's not going to the colonies. That's not going to the newly formed U.S.
And they're at least they're on the correct side of the Atlantic Ocean to help out. Yeah. They
It's
just need
helping
that
France.
final push to be like, why don't you guys just go ahead and start sailing north and help out the Americans?
Yep, the Revolutionary War is only helping France gain a stronger foothold in the Caribbean.
Yep.
They're trying to get the Brits out of there, and they're like, okay, well, you guys keep fighting.
We talked about
up
during the
here.
Louisiana Purchase, them having New Orleans and everything like that. They're basically saying, if you help us kick them out, you guys are going to have access to all this stuff again and not have to worry about the Brits messing with you.
Well, it was mutually beneficial for sure, and I don't know how accurate this number is because it sounds insane for the times, but it says that financial and military support during that period is estimated at over 1.1 billion livre. But also, if you calculate in all of the stuff that they're doing in the Caribbean and all of that fighting, I suppose that's probably where that monetary
Probably. And a
number
lot of
comes
that
to.
is going to be benefiting most of all France.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like they're sending that stuff they're capturing back up to the Americans. They're like, "Nah, this stuff's going directly back to France."
We'll call this part of your loan payment, I guess. Just letting us have this stuff. Battle of Yorktown, 1781, finally kind of cripples the British war efforts in the colonies. Envoy members, like I say, weren't really impressed with what Ben was doing. John Adams shows up. The French are wholly unimpressed with what John Adams is doing. September 3rd, 1783. So we have basically 2 years of the construction of this Treaty of Paris, with Ben Franklin being kind of the main representative for all of the interests of the colonies.
Mm-hmm.
He's writing back, he's getting information from them, but at the same time, ultimately, Ben's the decision maker for everything that goes into the Treaty of Paris.
In the Treaty of Paris, but the agreement that is reached with the Brits, Paris is cut out of that.
Yeah. So,
and that was one of the big conditions is the French were like, we're fighting this war against the British with you. When it comes down to the negotiation table, we want to also be there to make sure we're going to get ours. Well, these two other guys, I believe it was John Adams and John Jay, were like, no, we're not. That's going to go ahead and compromise our position of giving up too much to the French. We're going to have to pay them back for this. We're not going to put ourselves beholden to another monarchy and put ourselves underneath them. So we're going to make our agreement with the British. The British and the French can make whatever decision that they want to make between themselves, and then we'll have our current standing, treaty and everything with the French that we signed as this partnership and trade thing. And basically, Ben Franklin is left kind of to explain to the French what's going on and has to explain to this foreign minister and say, like, listen, man, I'm sorry. Like these other, I had to go ahead and back these guys because they're in the Continental Congress with me and everything. We have to go with this type of negotiation because this is what's been voted on to go ahead and do. But I hope you know that, we're still going to honor our agreements to France as far as like our partnership, our trade, and repaying back everything. There's no reason that we can't all get along still.
Yeah, except for the French, I think they might have had an axe to grind. They just didn't know it yet. Because we're talking the Treaty of Paris gets signed 1783. French Revolution begins to start kicking off in 1789. So 6 years after the colonies just shook off their imperial powers, you have a king who backed a colony to shake off a king, then going through that kind of a revolution within his own country in less than a decade.
Okay. It is so self-fulfilling what happens here, just like you said. The money that was lent to the Americans to overthrow the king bankrupted France and caused such a situation that they then saw that overthrowing a king was possible because they just backed that, and now they're in a position where they have to do the same thing. So basically, yeah, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy where Louis ended up causing his own revolution.
Bad outcome for the French.
Did not see that one coming.
Nope. No, the writing, I think, was pretty much on the wall.
She told them they could eat cake.
1785, Ben's pretty much had his time. He writes back to Congress asking for them to send a replacement over.
He's 79 at this time, right?
I think so. Pretty fucking old.
The gout's getting worse. The dick has stopped working like it used to. He's drank too much wine. He's had too much beef. The gout keeps flaring up even more. He's got to get home. He has to see, they won. We won. And he hasn't been able to see it yet. Mm-hmm. And he's got to get over there. It would have been so fucking tragic had he not, like, the only thing more tragic than him, like, dying in France would have been him on a boat going to the Americas and sinking.
Yeah. Also, Thomas Jefferson goes over to replace Ben Franklin in France. So that would mean that Thomas Jefferson is the envoy over in France when the French Revolution happens. Mm-hmm. Thomas had to have been sitting in his house one day looking at what's going on. He's like, what the fuck did Ben do over here?
Yeah.
What did Ben drop in
what we did.
Ben dropped this in my lap. Uh-huh. Ben had to have heard rumblings of what was going on.
That's had to have gotten the fuck out of there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he was... Thomas Jefferson for sure had to go home, but he's like, God damn, dude. This is what we did? This was the whole thing?
Like, do you think the king was looking at Thomas Jefferson and being like, you guys got to send soldiers over? And he's like, I'll go check.
Ben was such a deal maker that he killed two kings, essentially.
Yeah.
Just a wild turn of events. October 18th, 1785, Ben, freshly home, ends up being elected the president of Pennsylvania. There was a board that, I guess it was the delegates or whoever was in power at that point in time, unanimously votes him in as president. He also gets reelected. I believe they're 1-year terms. He gets reelected, I believe, 2 other times.
So some people might be asking, Adam, what the fuck are you talking about? President of Pennsylvania. We all fought together. We won the war as the colonies to become the United States. But at this point, although the states were united, there was no singular national government. That's what they still had to figure out. That wasn't done during the Second Continental Congress. That was just the decision to declare the independence. So now all of a sudden you have to create a national government, and before you can do that, you have presidents of these individual states. You have representatives coming in to this basically what would I say, like a convention,
constitutional convention.
Yes, there we go, constitutional convention, to create what are going to be the bylaws and the type of government this country is going to operate.
Well, where are you going to hold a constitutional convention?
Philly!
Yep. Big Ben hosts it in 1787. He's also elected as a delegate.
You guys come to Philly. We just created these new things called cheesesteaks. You're all going to love them. Sam Adams is going to bring the beers.
We'll get that Bostonian beer in here. I'm going to need somebody from the Carolinas to bring up pimento cheese. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a whole spread here. We're going to just nosh this whole entire time. And Franklin plays a very similar role that he played in the drafting of the Declaration of Independence, where he just kind of sits back and watches everything. And really all he is kind of the cooler head to try to bring in the idea of them sharing this democracy together.
He is the guy that is like the old sage that has all of this knowledge that was in so many. He was in the court in England. He was in the court in France. He came up in very heavily loyal British colonies. And now he has to get carried in because he's, having trouble walking and everything. But I feel like he's just this guy that while all these younger guys are arguing back and forth with each other, at some point someone just goes, shut the fuck up. Ben, what do you think? And he's like, I don't know, motherfuckers. Both of you got some good points, but maybe we should compromise and do some of this stuff. And they're like, yeah, I guess we should do that.
He was the compromiser, basically.
Mm-hmm. He was the great facilitator within this, I think, this Continental Convention.
Well, and of course, after going through the Albany Conference and his pitch to try to unify the colonies back then,
I told you we should... Oh, what's this? The plan that I wrote 15 to 20 years ago? Weird. Y'all remember my snake drawing, right?
Yeah, we we could try to maybe run the Albany conference plan and see what goes on. And they do. I mean, they come out of it with a document that's still supposedly living and breathing today. When asked, there was a woman outside. I don't remember who she was. She asked Ben as he was walking out, being carried out.
Can I do the woman and then you answer it?
Yeah.
Okay. You walk out.
Oh, Ben wasn't walking. Ben was carrying. There we go.
Mr. Franklin, what type of government are we going to run?
A republic, madam, if you can keep it.
Hurrah!
He always had these words of not necessarily affirmation, but something that would stick, something that would put a little extra panache on what he was talking about. Some of the last kind of business that he's involved in before his health takes a turn is the abolitionist movement.
Yep, he serves as actually the president of the Continental Abolitionist movement or something like that. The guy owned slaves. He ran slave advertisements in his newspapers and everything. But again, the biggest thing I take away from Ben Franklin, I'm not making excuses or anything, is that I feel like this guy throughout his entire life is just constantly reinventing himself or adapting to the things going around him. And he's constantly growing. He doesn't get to a point in age where he's not willing to look back at himself and say, I think I was wrong in that kind of stuff. But instead of just saying I'm wrong, fuck it, I'm going to try to use my remaining resources and time to try to affect some change. So he is a huge proponent. The last legislation that he puts in front of Congress is about the abolishment of slavery. Of course, he gets shot down at that point. But it's still him trying to do something up until the point when he really can't do anything. Because throughout his entire life, the biggest, I guess, not virtue, but kind of always the driving force, even going back from when he was kind of like Cotton Mather was one of his mentors and everything, was just this thought.
Same guy from the Salem Witch Trials.
Strangely enough, was to always try to do something better or always try to do some good for man. And he saw this, and I want to say one of his, I don't know if it was the seal for the abolitionist movement or anything like that, but it said, am I not a man or a human? Am I not your brother? And so he basically was like, some of his last writings were talking about how can any of us claim to be free when men are also like in bondage and servitude? How can we claim to be on it wasn't so much the right side of history, but how can we claim to stand for liberty if we allow this to happen?
Well, you can almost hang him up a little bit and say, why did this take him to have to write this after the Constitution was signed? He was a part of the drafting party of the Constitution. Why didn't he abolish slavery then?
It wasn't up to him, though.
And that's what it comes down to, is when he writes his letter and it gets shot down immediately. Had he pushed for that to be in the Constitution, we may have never come to a conclusion and had a Constitution.
It was already so dicey enough to get all of these guys to agree to these common conditions as it was. That was going to be kind of a no-go
non-starter.
scenario. That would have turned so many people out. And at that point, the priority was getting everybody on the same page. And again, this is where like the great compromise, this thing is a great experiment. It wasn't perfect. I can't remember exactly what the terminology that he used was, but he was talking about, he's like, this isn't perfect. He's like this, but I don't know if we could have done any better than this. And I think it's as close to perfect as we were able to get.
Yeah. And had it continued to evolve, had it stayed the living, breathing document, which it did for a matter of time, it seemed to have slowed down and not been really respected.
Adhered to as of late.
Yeah. But the Constitution was something that had to happen. And had he tried to throw up this opposition and it never came down, I mean, it would have not been advantageous to the colonies.
He was the only one to sign both the Declaration of Independence, the treaty with England for the surrender and for recognition of the United States, and also the Constitution. The only one to sign all three.
Pretty big deal.
And never was the fucking president.
But we know why.
Yes.
Because Ben Franklin has the resume to be an all-time president. But the problem was he was twice the age of everybody else that was
He was in the
room.
last couple years of his life at this point. Had he been, when all of this went down, had he been an ambassador to France at 50 years old and came back,
Yeah.
I think the race between him and the decision between him and George Washington would have been something we learned a lot more about.
And had he not beaten Washington, he would have been the second president.
Well, yes, 100%.
Hands down. There's no question about that. April 17th, 1790, Ben ends up passing away in his home in Philadelphia. They called it a pleuratic attack. I believe it was he had like I want to use the term bubo, but a growth in his lung that it had exploded.
I want to say he was sitting there writing a spicy as fuck letter to one of his French mesdames, and it was just getting hot and heavy, and it just got him too excited, and his heart gave out.
No, maybe. So he's speaking to his daughter, and she tells him to turn over in the bed so he can breathe better because he's having trouble breathing. Mm-hmm. And he turns around and he looks at her and he goes, "Do you know how hard it is for a dying man to move to his other side?" Like, he's still letting
just so matter of fact and glib.
Yeah. He's on his way out and he's like, "Lady, I'm dying. Do you think I care how much I'm breathing
You think
right
by
now?"
fucking it, I'm trying not to breathe anymore. This is painful shit.
Yeah. He keeps plugging his nose and holding his breath.
Do you know how hard it is to get to 84 at this time in the world?
I would say getting to 84 now is an accomplishment.
Yeah.
84 in 1790 is incredible.
And living in France for like 5 years, or like, what was it, 9 years before that, where you're just like eating whatever you want, having the most opulent shit ever. Yeah.
Crossing the ocean a handful of times in a lifetime feels pretty dicey. But somehow he did it. There were 20,000 people that attended his funeral. He was buried at Christ Church in Philadelphia next to Debbie. Pretty cool little aside. They had the leader of every faith that was available in Philadelphia come up and basically give their blessings at his casket.
Everybody wanted a piece of Ben. I think that's also a thing where it goes to show how many people would want to try to like claim him or to show that they were down with BF.
His grave, interestingly enough, on his grave, he specified that all he wanted was simple words. Benjamin and Deborah Franklin on that. He did have an epitaph on the wall, and this is some creepy foreshadowing, but in 1728, at the age of 22, he wrote his own epitaph. It says, "The body of B. Franklin, printer," because he was the common man. So he was Ben Franklin, printer, whenever he wrote this.
Hey,
or whenever he wrote his name.
I'm just a printer.
Yeah. Like the cover of an old book, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding lies here. Food for worms. But the work shall not be wholly lost, for it will, as he believed, appear once more in new and more perfect edition, corrected and amended by the author. So that sounds like we're speaking a little bit of reincarnation, maybe. Mm-hmm.
Or his ideas would never die. They would simply be redone or like renewed and everything.
That is such a perfect summation of a guy who seemed to... He cared about himself. There's no question that Ben cared about himself and his own delicacies.
We didn't even talk, and I know it's going back, but he didn't exactly, going back, we didn't touch on William, and I know it's kind of late to do that and everything like that. But with his son, when he first came back before... Well, I mean, again, there was Second Continental Congress War was already happening. He went and spoke to his son and tried to get his son over onto the side of the Americans. And his son was just 100% all in on the British side. And that was the last time they had ever really communicated with each other after they had separated. I believe that his son, William, was actually arrested and held prisoner for a period of time. Got out, tried to actually cause and stir up some more British shit and try to get some like guerrilla warfare type stuff going during the revolution. And then eventually had to, after getting arrested again, had to end up fleeing back to Britain and lived in London.
He died in London.
And he ended up dying in London. But Ben didn't leave him anything in his will. I think he might have left him like a little bit of a useless plot of land or something like that over in the United States that he knew he would never come to. But yeah, maybe somebody that was more understanding and kinder to those outside of his family than he was to those people inside of it.
It's kind of a fucking bummer, too, because the only reason William was such an ardent supporter of the crown in England is because of the way that Ben Franklin brought him up.
He hyped it up so much that, he couldn't get away from drinking the British Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and he ended up dying in London. So, as we talked about before, Ben had himself a list of inventions, and this is a fun one to go out on. Hilariously enough, 1717, he would have been 11 years old at the time. Ben says that he created swim fins.
He strapped a couple pieces of wood to his feet, and yeah.
He also used to really enjoy, of course, because we know about the kite story. Mm-hmm. He was basically like the first windsurfer, because he threw a kite up into the air, he climbed out into this lake and just let the wind pull him along the lake.
Yeah.
He's had himself a little kind of water skiing.
Did you know that most people, like 85% of the people in the colonies couldn't swim? And so like teaching yourself to swim was a huge deal.
It was also why you didn't want to be convicted of being a witch or accused of being a witch.
That's true. He's like, I got to prepare because at some point I'm going to plan on doing some really crazy shit and people are going to think I'm using sorcery.
Electricity.
Yeah. Toss me in the water, please.
In 1741, he created something called the Franklin stove. This was a massive invention. This was a stove that he was able to basically create like a steel skeleton to be able to conduct a lot of that heat and
weirdly
hold it
enough,
in.
stoves used to just be stone fireplaces. He basically is just like, I'm just going to put metal kind of on the inside of it and make a metal box that's going to be very conductive to heat. So it's going to burn much more efficiently. You're not going to lose as much heat, and it's going to be able to use less fuel.
It had to be shit masonry back then, because a stone fireplace puts out a lot of heat.
Yeah, but I'm also guessing, too, that with a stone fireplace, it's a very large chimney that goes up, and a lot of heat just gets out. When you can heat up that metal and maybe keep it going out a smaller hole, you're creating a lot more ambient heat.
And
I don't know. I'm not Benjamin Franklin. Obviously, it was a hit, though.
Kicking smoke out better, yeah. I could definitely see that for sure. 1950s, he made improvements to street lamps. He was able to basically create a situation that would allow the smoke to vent out, because these were all literally lamps. These weren't light bulbs. He created this idea of using 4 glass panels with gaps at the tops and the bottoms to let the smoke out, because eventually the smoke would fill and then the
it would
light
just be a black, but it would get soot and everything on the inside.
Light would be worthless. 1750, of course, we get the lightning rod. Big deal there. 1752, I want to know how he came up with this. He invents basically the first flexible catheter.
That's got to be a need, because, again, the hospital and everything like that. But at a certain point, is that something that he has to invent out of a self-necessity? He's
Maybe.
like, I'm sticking this hard-ass tube up my pee hole. I need something flexible that's easier. But what do you make that out of?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Some type of like animal bladder or something?
Yeah, actually that's probably a lambskin type material, maybe something like that.
Pig intestines or some shit.
Also, who do you test that on?
Yourself. 100%.
Nobody else is signing up to get something shoved up their pee hole.
You want to put that ad? He had the paper to put the ad out in, but no one's responding to it. Wanted somebody that'll let me stick something up their dick.
Guess I just better do this myself.
6 shillings.
You would think that he would have wanted to have invented these before he invented the flexible catheter, and to some extent, these were around. I think it was just maybe his idea to place them together, but in 1784, he creates bifocals.
Yeah.
So
I need to be able to look up and see far away, but when I look down at the tube in my dick, I need to be able to see it up close to make sure I'm getting it in there all right.
I need an intimate look at where I'm sticking this thing. 1760s, he created a carriage odometer. That seems kind of nuts, to put an odometer on your carriage.
How many miles on this little girl?
Yeah, to tell how far you went.
Can you take the carriage in reverse to wind it down?
Some Ferris Bueller's Day Off shit. He's running the miles off of the carriages to sell them for more.
We just hook the horses up backwards, and then we just have them run that way.
1762, he creates a glass harmonica. Don't know where in the hell he would have come up with this invention.
Oh, I got you on this one. Okay.
Okay.
He saw, you know, the thing that people will do will they'll fill different cups with water and then they'll run their fingers around the outside.
Yeah, I
and
like that. I like that a lot.
He really liked that, but he couldn't do it enough. So what he did is he's like, well, instead of making your fingers go around the glass, I'm going to make the glass go around your fingers. So it was this thing that was basically looked like it was on a dowel, and it was these glass, basically this big piece of blown glass of all different sizes that you could just run your finger and move your finger. And then because it was rotating, it would make the sounds as you just placed your finger on different ones.
And then you got a wet finger, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you're just constantly spitting on your fingers. Or you just constantly have water on it or something.
Yeah.
But I saw someone playing it. It's pretty fucking cool looking.
They're so cool to listen to.
It looks like the craziest bong you would ever see.
Yeah. Yep. Hopefully he tried it. Hopefully
Where do you think some of the ideas came? What do you think he got? Let's go fly a kite in a lightning storm. Tie this key to it.
Just stoned to the bejesus out there with it.
Come on.
William, I know this is going to sound crazy.
Listen. The Iroquois are great for two things. The fact that they were able to all join together, and they have the best peyote.
This being a late in life invention, I can't help but think that this is maybe his greatest invention for old age. In 1786, he created the long arm grabber.
Yes, the gopher.
Yes. He was the original inventor of the gopher because he got tired of climbing up and down the ladder in his library. He's like, fuck it. If I just create something really long with a grip at the end of it that I can pull a book down.
Everybody has been at their grandparents' house and has seen the gopher.
Yeah. And they work. They're effective.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely effective.
Unless your child gets a hold of him and then just breaks the shit out of it.
Yeah. We had one for a very long time. And whenever my dad would fall asleep on the couch, I would always get the grabber out and I'd pinch his nose and wake him up. He hated that. Yeah. But Ben lived such an incredible life. Like we talked about in the beginning, this was a guy who lived 3 lives. He built himself up and made himself a wealthy man in the print business to be able to go into these inventions and kind of start doing good for the community. And then when the time came and when his number was called, he was able to step up and be a revolutionary hero.
You'd have to do like Ben Franklin, entrepreneur, revolutionary, lover.
Yeah, and then you throw in the lover throughout the entirety of that lifetime.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of miles on his
There was
odometer.
one woman that he loved, but many that enjoyed his company and his penis.
He had a bit of a bondish tendency.
Yeah. I wonder, you know how FDR nicknamed it Jumbo?
Yeah, not FDR. FDR. He named his wheelchair?
No. Who named it Jumbo?
The guy after Kennedy. Jesus Christ.
Oh, God. Woodrow Wilson?
No. Fucking. Oh my God.
Why
How
can
is
we
this
not think
happening? This is what happens when we're almost 3 hours in.
Okay. Anyway, but you got to imagine that Ben had some type of flowery nickname for his member, right?
Little Ben.
Yeah. Big Ben, actually.
Big Ben. Lyndon B. Johnson.
Lyndon B.
That's
Johnson.
who had
That's
Jumbo.
right. But yeah. Dude, this guy is like I think this guy is the OG founding father. He is. I mean, you had Washington that led the army that, you know, served as the first president, but so much of the stuff that led to all of that happening, so much of the contribution that led to the Declaration, the Constitution, getting French support, it cannot be stated enough how important Benjamin Franklin was, not just politically, but just to the development of the country as a whole.
Most important founding father of the revolution.
Hands down.
Because Washington could have fought to his heart's content. He could have given his life for this country. We don't win the Revolutionary War without Franklin getting that money and the much needed supplies to the
Washington
Continental
also
Army.
couldn't write the Constitution. Washington couldn't write the Declaration of Independence. Had you left it up to just Benjamin Franklin, he could have written those documents himself. They wouldn't have been the same.
No.
But he could have written those documents.
Yeah. He was necessary for the country's founding.
He's also one of the ones that had the idea to do the representative government where it was going to be the House would have representation based upon the number and the population of people, and then the Senate would have it based upon equal representation by the number of states. And there were a lot of guys that weren't on board with this because they thought it should be population representation throughout the whole thing. And he was like, well, what if the House has access or has the final say on all spending and funds? And they're like, okay, yeah, he was able to wheel and deal and figure out a way to do this to where he was able to get everyone to compromise and come to this agreement. So the great facilitator, the founding daddy, the founding godfather, whatever you want to call him, Benjamin Franklin is just an amazing individual.
Yeah, his ability to learn and soak in knowledge. I don't know if it's out yet, but we had a Patreon episode on Socrates and his use of the Socratic method and just understanding. He makes a few references in his autobiography about spending time with Jesus and Socrates. Mm-hmm. Like he held them both in such high regard, and his methods of being able to get people to compromise and work together. And as we talked about with Socrates, one of the prevailing reasons why he didn't write anything down was because he needed to be able to have the conversation to do what he did. And Franklin, his biggest strength was being able to have a conversation.
And have the aspect of writing that stuff down, too. So it was almost like he had a skill set that Socrates didn't have. Modern day fucking Socrates, too.
Yep. He moved along philosophy quite a bit.
That's one of those things where it's like, who would you like to have dinner with? Think of sitting Socrates and Ben Franklin down together, and Socrates would just be like, oh shit, you took my stuff and improved upon it. Bravo.
You figured out how to write it down.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man, you got anything else?
Only that I'm a little bummed that we started with Ben and the Founding Fathers.
It's all downhill from here. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's such a fun episode.
Yeah. Ben will be the bar that all these guys have to measure up against now.
High water mark for sure.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.